Let me show you. This will blow your mind. Which square looks darker?
A.
Definitely A.
100%.
Your eyes are lying to you. You do not see reality. Successful entrepreneurs have this ability to see a reality that nobody else can see. They can see the $100 bills all over the street. You can change what you see and ultimately what you do.
Eyal has spent 6 years to figure out first to not get distracted and now to change your belief systems. He's been sought out all over the world to do exactly what he is going to teach you today.
The 10-minute rule says you can give in to any distraction, but not right now. I don't know what to do right now. I got to do something. That's the cause of distraction. What you will find is that the 10-minute rule becomes the 12-minute rule, the 20-minute rule. You're proving your self-efficacy and your agency. Right now, you are processing 11 million bits of information per second. You can only attend to this tiny keyhole of attention.
We have to be so careful about what we let in here.
More than ever. But how exactly do we do that for technology? Turns out it's actually not that hard.
No way.
That's the superpower that most people have no clue that they could unlock within them right now. There's 4 steps to becoming indistractable, but the firewall against distraction is...
When you are fighting with somebody else, how do you take a step back and say, oh, wait a second, I might have just perceived that wrong?
So this is a big part of the revelation for me, was realizing that I don't see reality as it is. If you believe, no, absolutely, 100%, I'm certain, done deal, you can't change my mind, that becomes your reality, right? Think about it as somebody running a marathon. Who's more likely to finish a marathon? The person who says, I can't finish this marathon, or the person who says, I think I can finish the marathon? Now, the objective fact could be either way. Neither of those are facts. They are beliefs, right? The fact could be that some people don't finish a marathon. But who are you going to bet on, right? Are you going to bet on the person who says, I cannot finish this marathon, in which case they quit, they're out, versus the person who says, I might be able to, or I think I can finish this marathon? They do, or they're more likely to because they persist, because they try. So the beliefs that get people the most upset, that get people the most agitated, that get people to say, that's ridiculous, those are the beliefs we most need to explore. The ones that we say, that cannot be true. That person is definitely evil. That business definitely will not work. That idea is the stupidest thing ever. We don't see reality as it is. We see reality as we are. And so the more agitated we get by the idea of thinking differently, it's because there's something in us that we are desperately trying to protect. It's called an immunity to change. Your brain does not want to change its beliefs because our default setting, we used to think in psychology that there was a thing called learned helplessness. It's kind of a very prevailing theory, and it explained why poor people stay poor. It's because they learn helplessness, that over time, if you keep trying and failing and trying and failing, well, you just give up. A few years ago, the authors of that study, and they did this with animal studies where they seemingly taught animals to kind of give up and learn hopelessness. Those authors, Seligman and Meyer, declared that they had gotten the study 100% backwards, that the study results were 180 degrees the opposite of what they thought, that we don't learn helplessness, that's our default. Our default state is helplessness. We constantly want to retreat into passivity. Think about it. When you're born, a baby is perfectly helpless. There's nothing they can do. They rely on others to help them. We don't have claws. We don't have sharp teeth. We can't run fast when we're born. We're completely helpless. So that is your default state. What we learn is hope. We must learn hope. 1950s, Kurt Richter takes these wild rats and he wants to see how long they can swim for. So he puts them in a cylinder, halfway full of water, and he sits there with a timer and he watches the poor little rat swim, swim, swim. And he sees that in about 15 minutes, the rat gives up, slips under the water, dies. You can't do these kind of studies anymore. It's kind of cruel, but the rats are already dead, so let's learn from them. Then he decides to change up the experiment. He gets a new group of rats, same cylinder, same water, puts the new group of rats inside these cylinders, and he knows that they're going to last for about 15 minutes. And just as his stopwatch reaches 15 minutes and they begin struggling and starting to give up, he reaches in, pulls out the rat, dries it off, lets it catch its breath, and plunk back into the cylinder it goes. Now, he does this a few times, so he conditions the rat to do something amazing. Now he wants to see how much longer the rat can swim for. When I ask audiences, they know there's something amazing that's about to be revealed, and so I ask them, how much longer did the rat swim for? Once the rat was conditioned to this new belief set, how much longer did it swim? People say double, they 3 times, 4 times longer, right? Wouldn't that be amazing if you could be 4 times more perseverant? That would be incredible, right? Running a marathon 4 times longer or sticking with a hard project 4 times longer. That'd be amazing. The rats didn't swim 4 times longer. They didn't swim for 60 minutes. They swam for 60 hours. They went from 15 minutes to 240 times more persistent. 60 hours of swimming. Now, what changed? Same experiment, same body, nothing changed physically. So they didn't have super strength all of a sudden. We can't ask rats what they believe, obviously, but we think the only factor left was something changed in their mind. That when they suddenly had the hope of salvation, that something could save them from their death, they persisted. They changed their belief and then kept going. That's the unlock. That's the superpower that most people have no clue that they could unlock within them right now. That we need to be very humble. We don't see reality clearly. We don't feel things as they really are either. And our beliefs greatly influence what we do. So we call this attention, anticipation, and agency. See, feel, do. Those are the 3 powers of belief. So that's the most important thing, that if you can harness what you believe, you can change what you see, how you feel, and ultimately what you do. So just like those rats had the 60 hours in them all along, right? It was there. Their belief changing unlocked that potential. And we know, that there's several studies now that find that the defining trait of success in individuals, it's not necessarily intelligence, right? It's not how smart you are. It's really 2 things. It's persistence and adaptability. And I would argue those 2 things go hand in hand. That successful people, and I'm guessing you can attest to this, if you want to find who are the losers, who fails a lot, it's not the people who are not successful. Successful people are the biggest losers, meaning in terms of number of failures, it's the successful people. Why? Because they persist. They keep going. If you can unlock that, if you can suddenly change in your brain the pain, the suffering that comes along with difficult tasks, and now all of a sudden you can persist way longer without having to suffer through it, man, what can't you do?
Speaking of what can't you do, I was fascinated by the section that you wrote about how powerful your mind is and a word called hypnosedation. And you gave an example of a guy by the name of Daniel Gessler.
And it's not just Daniel. So here's what happened. So this guy was a commodities trader, okay? Also very buttoned up, like very analytical, the opposite of anything, supernatural, mumbo jumbo. He's very, very analytical guy. And the guy has this freak accident and he has to get screws put in his ankle. A few years later, he has to get them removed. And he comes across this technique on YouTube called hypnosedation, which is a form of hypnosis, not stage hypnosis. That's a whole nother thing going on there. It's basically harnessing the power of the mind to focus deeply through its attentional filter. So you're basically using that keyhole of attention we talked about earlier to only let in certain signals and not others, right? Because pain is just information. Just like the light entering your retinas right now, it's just more information. So he takes this course. He learns how to hypnosedate himself. He starts with these clamps that are very painful pinchers on his hands, and he trains himself over time to tune out those pain signals. And by the time he's finished with his course, he goes into the operating room, and the doctors for 55 minutes cut into flesh and bone, pull out metal screws from his body with 0 local anesthesia, 0 general anesthesia, all through the power of his mind. So why do I tell this story? I'm not advocating for hypnosedation. You don't have to go do that. But the reason I want people to know about this, and the reason I use it in my life, is that if the brain has the power to change our perception of the pain of surgery without anesthesia, what are we complaining about exactly?
And what else can it do?
What else can it do, right? Like when things get hard, it's just pain management, right? We used to think that motivation was about carrots and sticks. You've heard this metaphor, right? Mm-hmm. That it's about the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Well, now we know that's not true. That when you actually look inside the brain, what we can see happening is that the brain is only motivated by one thing, that the carrot is the stick. The carrot is the stick. What does that mean? That even when we are pursuing pleasure, wanting, craving, desire, lusting, hunger, those things are psychologically destabilizing. So the carrot is the stick. When we want to feel good, it's because wanting hurts. They say love hurts. Remember that song? It's exactly true. So what that means, therefore, if all human behavior is spurred by a desire to escape discomfort, that means, therefore, that time management is pain management. Money management is pain management. Weight management is pain management. It's all about managing discomfort. And so what we learn, what the literature shows us, the research finds, is that pain and suffering are two separate things. And that's exactly what Daniel did. He was able to separate the signals coming into his brain, telling him about the pain, and separate it from the suffering, from the response that most of us feel.
You know, it's fascinating because to use it tactically, you talk a lot about relationships in the book and, intimate relationships, familial relationships. But you have a line that I loved, which was, you don't have relationship problems, you have perception problems. And so can you apply this to a relationship today? And like we were kind of joking about this beforehand, but I'm sure nobody can relate. But imagine that you're having a fight and you are convinced that your husband is wrong and judgmental and this is all their fault.
Trying to hurt you.
100%. And yeah, maybe that's true.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not.
Right.
So what do you do to use this practice to help in your relationship and your marriage?
So the most important thing is to realize that you are only seeing reality through this keyhole of attention. And so you can't you can't even process your own reality, right? Your brain is predicting what is happening based on its prior understandings, right? Actually, let me give you an example. You have that optical illusion.
Oh, yeah.
Let me show you. This will blow your mind, and this will be directly relevant for relationships. So, okay. So in this illusion,
explain this?
Yeah, absolutely. So look at this and tell me which square looks darker, A or B?
Oh, A.
A. Definitely A.
100%.
100% A is darker than B. But of course, if you look at the bottom image and I put a strip of the same color, you will see that A and B are, in fact, the same color. Now look back at the first image on the top. Does it look any different?
It still looks
the same.
Of course.
Your eyes are lying to you because you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain based on priors, based on what's happened in the past. Your brain has been conditioned that that's the way reality works. So it's predicting a future that doesn't really exist. Now, why does the brain do this? Because it can't keep up with the 11 million bits.
Right.
It has to do this in order to process all the information that's coming into it. So all of us need to bring down that certainty a notch and say, okay, I need the intellectual humility to understand that I only see things the way I see them based on my prior understanding. I only see reality as I am. I only see others as I am. And once we have that intellectual humility, then we can open up other possibilities. Because people don't understand that there's a difference between an emotion and a feeling. Those are two separate things. An emotion is a physiological response. A feeling is an interpretation of that physiological response. So feelings are psychological, emotions are physiological. So for example, if right now you started getting heart palpitations, you started breathing quickly, we have to go to the ER. That's something to be really worried about. Like that should not happen right now. But if you're at the gym and you're experiencing the exact same physiological reaction, hey, I'm having a good workout. You're happy about that. What changed? The context, right? So that's the key to these relationships is understanding that we don't see reality. That's the first step. And then when we get into these interpersonal conflicts, forcing ourselves to intentionally take the opposite opinion, to do that turnaround we talked about earlier that I did with my mom, to force ourselves to say, okay, clearly a smart person that I respect disagrees with me. Let me take the opposing argument. So with my wife and I are celebrating 25 years this year together. 25 years married. Thank you. And we don't fight. We honestly, we don't fight. We disagree. We do not fight. Fighting is bullshit. There's no need to fight. Because if I respect this person, and I know she's no dummy, I wouldn't have married her if she's a very, very smart person. If she has an alternative perspective of what's happening in the world, right, with our daughter or with our relationship or with our business, she should be listened to, right? So it's not a fight. It might be a disagreement. But my job, and sometimes we definitely disagree, we have very different opinions. But one of the things what we'll do is intentionally take each other's perspectives, that to have a good faith argument where we say, okay, I'm going to try my best, not just to mirror what you're saying, blah, 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 because that feels very fake to me, but to actually have a good faith effort to steelman her argument, to make the best possible display of what she's trying to say. And 9 times out of 10, Cody, that's actually what the argument's about.
It's such a good point because you're right. I've done the mirror thing before, and it does feel
Feels
it's like
kinda fake.
it's parroting,
Right.
you know.
But
All of a
when
sudden,
somebody actually feels heard,
right, then it goes away. That's
right?
so fascinating. I'm going to use this because you're right. I think often the other person, you're just listening to kind of get your words in, right? And you're like,
Or to
yeah,
win.
yeah, or to win. And, and I think increasingly in a world where everybody's telling you, have your boundaries and, you hold the line and don't get walked over and don't become a rug. Well, there's good parts to that, but there also is some sort of forgetfulness about the fact that you might be on the same team with this person. And so if you've chosen to spend your life with them, then maybe it makes sense to listen to what they're saying.
Right.
What's interesting too is you talk about this in regards to luck too. And so I had never thought about the fact that you might not just be a lucky person, you might just have a different attention to luck.
That's right.
And is that true? Like, if we pay more attention to luck, or if you pay more attention to luck, could you in fact be luckier?
That's absolutely what the research shows. And the study that really demonstrates this, they took two groups of people. One were self-identified lucky people who call themselves, hey, I tend to be pretty lucky, and people who said, no, I tend to be pretty unlucky in life. And they gave them a very simple task. The task was to look through a newspaper and simply count the number of images in the newspaper. And they said, if you do that, we'll give you $250 as soon as you finish. Finish as quickly as possible. The unlucky people, again, self-identified unlucky people, finished in 2.5 minutes. The lucky people finished in about 11 seconds. Why? Because when they flipped to page 2, one of those images said, there are 43 images in this paper, collect your prize. So the unlucky people didn't even see the ad. Again, their reality was different. Their beliefs didn't let them see the totality of information. That 11 million bits of information, that bit of information didn't even get in. Whereas the lucky people, bingo, and they went to collect their prize, right? And so this is a classic hallmark trait of entrepreneurs. What Walter Isaacson called about Steve Jobs, he called it the reality distortion field. That entrepreneurs successful entrepreneurs, have this ability to see a reality that nobody else can see. They can see the $100 bills all over the street, and they have this crazy belief in themselves that they can go and make an enterprise that nobody else sees possible, right? I mean, you did this in spades, right? How many people said, that can't be done. That's a silly idea.
No, it's so true. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is that pessimists sound smart and optimists make all the money.
Yes.
And I think you're
Literally.
right. Well, I didn't realize there was research to back it, but it does seem to be true. I mean, we talk about turning on your reticular activating system and that's not really probably a right way to say it from a science perspective, but just when you train your brain to look for something, apparently you find it more.
It's so true. I mean, we have a mutual friend, Vanessa Van Edwards.
Yeah.
And I love how I never hadn't heard it before, but I love how she says, don't say how you doing. What do people say when you say how you doing? I'm busy, things are tough, okay, good, fine. She said, what's good? Right? What a simple way to help us refocus on the good things in life. And my family, since I did this line of research, whenever something good happens, we say, somebody in the family will say, everything good happens to us. We just say it out loud, right? It's just like a family phrase. Everything good happens to us. Now, what we don't say, which I used to say all the time is, that's just my luck. Or why does this always happen to me? Or, again, I'm stuck in traffic. This always happens. Or she's always like that. Or that's so like him, right? Why do we do that? We are doing that to reinforce the comfort of these limiting beliefs that essentially keep us stuck. Whereas if we refocus our attention on the good things, guess what? Not only do we see more of those things, more of those good things start happening to us as well.
So you actually have lines that you tell your family to say consistently?
I don't tell them to do anything. That just become kind of a family tradition.
You have lines that your family says continuously, and then you have lines that you guys do not say. Is that right?
Well, nothing is enforced. It just has become kind of like a family mantra. I have a lot of mantras that I repeat to myself all the time as well. And that's something that's changed in my life quite a bit because I found this research around the power of prayer. And I stopped praying when I was 6 years old. I prayed when my family came to America a few years after they came here, they got scammed out of every penny they had. They literally, like some American guy saw that my parents barely spoke English and he took every cent they had, and my family had to start over, and we had some really, really hard times. And that's the last time I remember praying. And I remember it being very helpful. But then I got older and I stopped believing in the supernatural, and I didn't find any like organized religion that really spoke to me. And so I stopped praying. And then while I was doing this research, I came across this really difficult to ignore evidence around the power of prayer. And what blew my mind is that prayer works even without faith. That it turns out the biggest religious community in America today, the largest religious group, are nuns. Not the Catholic nuns, not N-U-N, N-O-N-E, people who don't affiliate with any religion, like I used to be. And it turns out that those people, and many of them call themselves spiritual but not religious. You hear that a lot. I'm spiritual but not religious, meaning I have some kind of belief in some kind of supernatural, that there's something bigger than me, but I don't attend any kind of faith tradition. Turns out those people are much more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety disorder than people who do affiliate with some kind of religious community. So I kind of got jealous, to be honest. Like, I wanted some of those benefits, incontrovertible. And then I came across this amazing study where there's a standard protocol to test people's pain tolerance. Basically what they do is they put people's hands in very, very cold ice water, and they see how long they can last. And they monitor when they grimace, strain, and then eventually when do they say, okay, I can't take it anymore. They take their hands out. And they had 3 groups of people. One group was a control group, so nothing changed with them. The second group were people who prayed with some kind of faith tradition. Okay, they had some kind of religious background. The third group were people who didn't have a faith background and who were taught how to pray. And they were told that if you don't want to say God, substitute it for anything of meaning. Mother Nature, the universe, the sum of all forces, whatever's meaningful to you. And it turns out that the people who learned how to pray and the people who prayed out of a faith tradition had a much higher pain tolerance than the people who didn't pray at all. So there are these psychologically protective effects to prayer. And so one of the things I did, I went to 5 faith leaders. It sounds like a setup of a joke, right? A rabbi, an imam, a priest, a swami, and a monk all walk into a bar. and I actually interviewed all 5 of them. And I said, how does one pray even if you have uncertainties about God? And so I took away these 5 lessons from them, and I've adopted them in my life and found that, you know what, they're incredibly beneficial. So now for the first time in my life, I pray. Because beliefs are tools, not truths. I don't need to have perfect certainty. I used to say, well, I can't pray because I'm not sure if everything in that book is 100% true. And if I can't prove it, I can't step into church. I can't go to synagogue. I can't step into a mosque. No, it's not true. I've relaxed that. Because you know what? Beliefs are tools, not truths. And so I can have this conviction that is open to revision based on new evidence because it serves me. It's improved my life. It's made me more patient. It's made me more calm. It's made me more at peace. And so I've stopped really asking, can I prove it's true? And rather asked, does it serve me? Does it improve my life and the life of those around me?
The most successful people in the world know exactly what Nir Eyal is telling us, which is that success is not actually a discipline. It is a habit and it is a belief. And if we can build systems around our beliefs, then they become habits. And this is what I have found over and over again in my life is that I don't have to have more willpower. I don't have to be more disciplined. I just need a system that makes it so I get to be thoughtless, have no thought at all, which is why I'm obsessed with this company Beehive that helps us create systems around email and our newsletters. We don't have to come up with something wild and crazy to sell our audience. We can actually send out an email every single week from a third-party provider that already does all the monetization, all the design work, all of the ads inside of it, all of the data so we can see who we're sending to and when we're sending it. You know why most companies don't have a good email list or a newsletter anybody wants to read? Because they don't have a system that makes it easy as 1, 2, 3 send in order to get one. That is why I'm obsessed with this company Beehive and with systems thinkers creating a way where newsletter reading, creating and writing becomes so habitual, you do it no matter what. In fact, I asked Beehive for a code for you guys. So if you don't already have a newsletter, or if you do and you want a better one, go to beehive.com, beehiiv.com, use code Codie30, and you get 30% off your first 3 months, because making money should be a system, not a discipline. What is interesting about this is we're talking here about beliefs, but your work kind of compounds, it seems like. Your first book was about how how to get people obsessed with something in some ways, hooked, right? How to hook people to a product, which is near and dear to my heart. Your second book was about distraction, right? And how to not be distractible. And then this third book kind of gets to the core of it, which is like, in order to not be distracted or get hooked, like, what do you believe in your head? There's something deeper, right? So I want to go there too, but I also want to talk about your 10-minute rule and what it does to help with distraction in a world that is very distractible.
Yeah.
What is it? Can you talk to us about it?
So the 10-minute rule says that you can give in to any distraction, but not right now. You're going to give into that distraction in 10 minutes. Now, why is this so powerful? Because we know that abstinence backfires. That sometimes abstinence can work if you can remove what we call the external trigger, right? When people are trying to get off of some kind of something they're addicted to, if you can remove that substance and all the things associated with it, right? Your peer group and all that stuff, the paraphernalia, yes, that can be very helpful. But how exactly do we do that for technology? Right? You can't just stop using technology, nor would you want to, right? It's incredibly empowering. So that's not a good solution. So telling yourself no doesn't work. It releases what's called psychological reactance. Psychological reactance is when someone tells you what to do, your reaction will be, don't tell me what to do, right? F off. If your boss micromanages you, that reaction, don't tell me what to do. Or if your parent told you to put on a coat, well, don't tell me what to do. I know what to do. That's psychological reactance. Now, the crazy thing is that you can elicit psychological reactance even when you tell yourself what to do, right? That's how weird our psychology is. So a better way than no, don't do it, and I'm a bad person if I check social media too much, and I shouldn't do it, no, stop doing it, is not to say no, it's to say not yet. I will do it. I'm a grown-up, I can do whatever I want, but I choose to do it in 10 minutes. And if 10 minutes are too long, make it the 5-minute rule, the 2-minute rule, doesn't really matter. So whether it's I'm trying to quit smoking, whether it's I'm trying not to give into that chocolate cake, whether it's I'm trying to focus on an important project rather than checking email every 3 seconds. So if I tell myself I will do it, but in 10 minutes, and then your job during those 10 minutes is to do what's called surf the urge, because these emotions, we think that they're going to be there forever, right? We feel boredom. We think we're always going to be bored, lonely, tense, uncertain, stressed, anxious. We feel like it's always going to be there, but that's never the case. These sensations are like waves. They crest and then they subside. And so if you can ride out that sensation for just sometimes a few seconds, you can refocus your attention. Because again, what causes us to get distracted, we think it's the external triggers. We think it's the pings, the dings, the rings, all this technology. That's only 10% of the cause. Studies have found 10% of the time you check your phone, is it because of some kind of ping, ding, or ring? 90% of the time, it's because of an internal trigger. Remember, time management is pain management. What is an internal trigger? Boredom, loneliness, fatigue, uncertainty, anxiety. That is 90% of the time you check your phone. It's because of a feeling. I don't know what to do right now. I got to do something. That's the cause of distraction 90% of the time. So if you can just ride out that sensation like a surfer on a surfboard, what you will find is that the 10-minute rule becomes the 12-minute rule, becomes the 20-minute rule. And over time, you're proving to yourself, wait a minute, I'm not addicted to these things. I'm not addicted to distraction. I can wait for a minute. I have control over them. You're proving your self-efficacy and your agency.
What's the flip side of that? Like, you talk about something else I really liked, which is, so we're going to stop the distractions here, maybe with this 10-minute rule, plus a few other things I want to go into.
Yeah, that's just like one teeny tiny technique.
God, they're so good. We're going to go through all of them.
Thanks.
But the next was, like, you had a whole section about how to basically increase your luck surface area and about daily habits you can do to train your brain to see things that other people cannot.
Right.
Can you talk about what daily habits you put into place so you train your brain to find luck?
Sure. So this is called entrepreneurial alertness, that you can literally create your own luck. And so there's a few things you can do, and these are traits common among entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, it's funny, don't understand why everybody doesn't do this, but they're very common traits. So one of them is stretching beyond your comfort zone. And we can do this in all kinds of small ways. I think one of the best is to talk to people, right? You spread your luck surface area when you just talk to folks. On the flight here, I just came from Barcelona, talked for an hour and a half in the galleyway of the flight, right? Where, people by the restrooms where they give out drinks. Talked to this lady for an hour and a half. Now we're friends and we're keeping in touch. But I don't know what's going to come out of that. But that's something that I think before doing this research, I would not have done. And now I'm very open to. So pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Another thing we do is to express extreme amounts of gratitude. That you increase your entrepreneurial alertness when you become attuned to ways to thank people in your life. That even the small, Tina Selig taught me this at Stanford. She has a big old stack of these thank you cards that she just whips off, as soon as she can write, hey, thanks for that pleasant good morning greeting today, or I really appreciated your comment in class today, or whatever. Thank you for doing that. Like, she never ever skips an opportunity to tell someone that they had a positive effect on her life. And of course, what happens is that the more surface area you spread with gratitude is the more you are thought of when good opportunities arise. So if your thank you note is on someone's desk next to, hey, here's a business deal, or here's an opportunity, or here's something to talk about, well, maybe there's a connection there. So you're creating luck, you're provoking luck by showing more gratitude and entering into that daily habit. And then the third thing is to intentionally fail more. That if I were to tell you, whatever it is that you're stuck doing, let's say you're trying to start a podcast, or make your sales calls, or whatever it is, find love, for example. And I told you, I took a time machine and I looked into the future, and I found that all you have to do is to fail 5 more times. Go on 5 more dates, and then you'll find love. Make 5 more sales calls, and then you're going to close that big deal. If I told you that, would you then say, well, I don't want to do those failures anymore? No, you'd be like, come on, let's fail quick. Let's go. Come on, I want to fail 5 times so I can get to the 6th success. And so that's one of those daily habits, is to relish the failures, to look forward to them, to teach your brain. Again, there's a difference between pain and suffering. Something can be difficult and yet meaningful. You don't have to suffer from it. So if you can teach your brain through the power of beliefs to want to get through those failures and learn to relish those failures, that is a habit that will increase your luck surface area.
Is there actual science that shows that people who are successful don't remember the failures as much? Is that a thing? Like, do you train your brain where eventually you don't even mean to, and you kind of can't remember all those failures?
Yes. We see others by how we think of them, but we judge ourselves differently. That if somebody messes up, it's because they're incompetent. But when we mess up, we have a story, right? Like, you just don't understand. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, it's because they're being a jerk. But if you cut someone off in traffic, it's because I'm in a hurry and it's very important, right? So we look at our beliefs, even our memories, actually. We know that memory is incredibly vulnerable to revision. That every time you think of a memory, you are actually revising it in your brain. Actually, there's a friend of mine, Chris, that I was telling him about my research, and he says, you know what, there's a perfect example in my life. For years, I couldn't cry. And it really hurt my relationships with my girlfriends, because they would say I wasn't emotionally available because we would have a difficult time, and I just couldn't cry. And you know why I couldn't cry? It's because when I was a kid, I went to a funeral at 6 years old, and it was really traumatizing. And ever since then, I can't cry. And he told his sister this story. Chris told his sister that, this is, it's another breakup, another reason. Here's why I'm not emotionally available. It's because I can't cry, and I went to this funeral. And she says, Chris, you didn't go to that funeral. Mom and Dad thought you were too young. You were at home with the babysitter. This is his older sister. She remembered it. And he had been living with this memory that never even happened.
That's cool.
And we do this all the time. Memory is incredibly vulnerable to revision. That Elizabeth Loftus has these amazing studies where she implants memories of people going on a hot air balloon ride that never happened, and they'll describe the wind in their hair and the color of the balloon, completely made up. And this is so where does this get back to? That based on those memories that we think are so true, we think of memories as like a video camera. It's not a video camera at all. It's incredibly vulnerable. That people will take it 2 different ways. Some people will say, oh, this terrible thing happened to me. This person did this thing to me. And maybe it happened, but 100% sure it didn't happen the way you think it did. You have revised it since, for sure. Second example is when people who have a positive outlook on life, they can look at the same exact events, and you see, because that happened, that's why I have to prove others wrong, or that's why I succeed, is because I had to show them. So same exact thing can happen. You can have post-traumatic stress, right? And that can cause people a lot of suffering. Or for some people, you have post-traumatic growth. It was because that terrible thing happened. That's why I'm so driven today.
Do people ever push back on your research and they're like, you must have never been through anything very hard, because how could you say I couldn't have PTSD instead of having, PTGD?
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
get
first
that
of all,
kind of pushback?
I'm not saying that. I would never say to somebody that they're not in pain. All pain is real. All pain is real. The pushback I oftentimes hear is that, are you telling people to lie to themselves? Are you telling me that I should gaslight myself and make up a different truth because you're saying that beliefs are just tools, I can make up whatever I want? And my response is, guess what? You're already gaslighting yourself. You are already lying to yourself. You're just lying to yourself with a limiting belief. So you could choose a different belief. Now, the whole point here, what is a limiting belief? What is a liberating belief? A limiting belief is a belief that saps motivation or causes suffering.
Mm-hmm.
A liberating belief is a belief that supplies motivation or eases suffering. And that's a choice. That's a choice. Even when it sounds crazy. So I never tell people to change their beliefs. I tell people to try on different beliefs. So what you're doing is just like you try on a pair of glasses and you say, it doesn't fit my face. I don't like it. This is weird. Okay, let's try on a different pair of glasses. You're already wearing those glasses. That keyhole of attention, those 50 bits of information, that's already there. You just didn't choose it. Your society chose it. Your background chose it. Your history chose it. All these other things chose it. You didn't choose it. It's kind of like your face, that you can't see your face. We all have these limiting beliefs, but they're always hidden to us. And the ones you most defend are the ones you most need to examine. So when people hear this and say, that's crazy, you don't understand what happened to me, that's what needs some digging. That's what needs some examination if they want to stop suffering. Look, some people don't mind the suffering. They find their identity is the suffering. And I'm not here to change anybody, right? I'm telling you what worked in my life. I found that I started living when I disconnected the pain from the suffering. The pain can still be there, but just like Daniel Gisler, that could use the power of his mind to not interpret the pain as suffering. And we can do that not just with surgery. I mean, if we can do it with surgery, we can certainly do it with our past experiences and with our challenges and tribulations.
That's so good. Yeah, my husband and I always say to each other, do you want to be right or do you want to win? And it's true. Like, do you need to prove your point all the time, or, do you want to move forward in the world?
Right.
And so, but I like this differentiation of liberating beliefs and limiting beliefs, because if you do get to try on two hats, that just means you pick one.
Right.
And if that's true, and if we have all this research to suppose it, then why not? The other thing that I think is really interesting about this is, you started your career by essentially figuring out how attention worked with tech products. And so if today we're feeling overwhelmed by a lot of the things in front of us from technology, I think we have a lot of reasons, excuses, you could use whatever word you want, to say that it is not in my power to be undistracted, or it is not in my power what I focus on. But you had this line from it was from your last book, that was, there will be two types of people in the world. There will be those who are distracted, and there will be those who are indistractable. And the indistractable will win, to summarize your statement. What do you mean by that? And do you still believe that's true?
More than ever, because the world is becoming an increasingly distractible place. That with the dawn of AI, we know where this is going, and it's not all bad. I'm quite the tech optimist. I have to be, because I know history. I know that the world is terrible, and there's a lot of suffering, and also it's better than it's ever been, and it's getting better. And even that idea, I bet you right now, people are thinking this guy's crazy. And they're like, isn't he watching the news? Doesn't he see all the terrible things happening in the world today? Yeah, those things are happening, and things are getting better. And I'm optimistic about the future, because we can create the future unless we give up. So when you believe there's nothing to be done, what do? Nothing. And this is exactly the message that has been spreading in mainstream traditional media. Tells you technology is addictive and it's hijacking your brain. And they have documentaries, ironically, on Netflix telling you how technology is melting your brain. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's exactly what the tech companies want you to think. They want you to think there's nothing you can do for your children. They're all addicted, that it's hopeless. Because what are you going to do? Nothing. That is the message of passivity they are trying to default us into. That is our default, to do nothing. Because now I've absolved responsibility, right? It's not my fault. Zuckerberg is doing it to me. Maybe that could be a truth. right? I don't know. Is that a fact or is it a belief? I choose to believe I can do something about it. Turns out it's actually not that hard. And there's a few steps anyone can take to become indistractable to themselves and to teach their kids to be indistractable. And if you don't teach your kids how to be indistractable, they will be part of this mass of people who can't control their attention because they don't want to and they don't learn the skills. I mean, we're not taught in school how to focus our attention. And I think those who do not learn how to be indistractable will be at the whim of whatever is happening, right? The gossip in the office or the whatever's happening on Twitter or whatever happening in the news or some war 3,000 miles away. It's got nothing to do with me, but that's what I keep paying attention to, as opposed to how can I make people's lives better in my family, in my community? How can I affect change right now, right here? I'm paying attention to all this other stuff because, frankly, the media wants me to, right? They make money. I don't care. People rag on social media. How exactly do you think the New York Times makes money, or Fox News or CNN? They're all in the same business. They're monetizing your attention. So you better hold on to it carefully.
It's such a good point. I was thinking about, I heard a quote yesterday and I can't remember who said it, but the summary was basically when, David asked for a bigger life, a bigger challenge, more, God didn't just give him easy, he gave him Goliath. And, part of me, what your work makes me think about in some ways, if we want to go super optimistic, it's, well, what if, this next level of what I would consider to be superhuman, which is I don't feel pain, which is I could 240x my ability to withstand treading water, AKA, what happened to the rats. If we wanted to become more superhuman, well, then we kind of need bigger challenges, which might just be this AI in front of us, this tech in front of us. And if you could see it instead not as defeatist, but what if this is the opportunity? If, whether you believe in God or not, but if God's like, all right, you're ready for the next level of the game.
That is a real life hack. And that was not my natural. I was kind of highly anxious, ran hot, and was that kind of person who repeated, oh, why does this tend to happen to me? And I mean, just today, right? Like I was preparing some food and it dropped on the floor. Okay, you're talking about like big AI challenges. I'm talking about like day to day as well. The food drops on the floor. Before I'd be like, God, why does that happen to me? I'm late. I've got this interview with Codie. Oh. Now I say, all right, I have an opportunity to practice patience. Right?
Yeah.
Like I can find an opportunity here. Is it a fact? No, it's a belief. I choose to believe that there's something, and I literally do this 10 times a day with like, whenever something happens a little funny in my life that before would bring me down. And of course, it takes a toll. It drains that battery throughout the day. The more you tell yourself, there it is again, or there it's, I used to do this with my ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD. And I used to every time I got a bit distracted or, I'd say, there's my ADHD again. And now, people my age, we start saying that all my peers, oh, that's, that's what happens when you get old, right? Like it's inevitable, right? Oh, this hurts, that hurts. Like it's inevitable. That's what happens. And so when you're having that senior moment, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about where your keys are? Are you thinking about what you just forgot or what the distraction is? No, you're thinking about this label you've attached to yourself. And so in this way, your labels become your limits. And even more so, your beliefs become your biology. There's an amazing study done at Yale where they found that people who have positive views about aging at age 30 live 7.5 years longer. Now, but to put that in perspective, Cody, 7.5 years longer, that is more than the effect of exercise. That's more than the effect of what you eat. That's more than the effect of smoking. Think about how much time and attention we hear about you should eat right, don't smoke, exercise. Who tells you the best thing you can do for your longevity and lifespan is to believe differently, is to have positive views about aging? Now, why is that happening? Are the beliefs magically changing the cells in your body? Nope, that's not how it works. What's happening is that two beliefs about the world can be equally true. So, for example, a positive view of aging sounds like this. Growth is possible at any age. That's a positive view about aging. What's a negative view about aging? Aging involves inevitable decline. Okay? Two perspectives. Which one is true, Cody?
Both.
Both. Exactly. Which one is going to make me more active?
The growth.
Growth is possible at any age. So why do we tell ourselves this stupid stuff like, I'm not a morning person, I'm a Sagittarius, I have ADHD, that's why I can't this. These are all limiting beliefs. Now, sometimes they can be a map, right? So for example, an ADHD diagnosis can guide you to work on something that you weren't aware of, that there's a path to help you get some kind of guidance. But it cannot become your identity. Once it becomes your identity, it stops becoming the map. You become the map. And then it's useless because that becomes your default state. Why you can't. Rather, you need to reinforce why you can. That becomes the empowering belief that keeps you motivated and reduces suffering.
God, this is so important because I could never put my finger on the point of why I got so annoyed many times in my career, but especially these last couple of years where people would say, well, Latinas, I'm Latina, Latinas and women, they just aren't as successful as men overall. And Latina CEOs, can't, female CEOs aren't paid this way. And wasn't it hard when you were in a male dominated industry and you can't progress very much? And I'd just be like, take your victim labels off me. This is not helpful to me at all. In fact, couldn't the opposite be true? Couldn't it be true that it could be really useful to be in a male-dominated field where it's Tom, Dick, and Larry every 7 seconds? Everyone's wearing blue, black, or gray suits, and I stand out differently. That could be helpful too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's I can hear in your voice that that's motivating.
Yeah.
And you don't seem to be suffering.
No, but I do like the chip on my shoulder. You know, I like a little.
But that's a belief.
Yeah.
That's a belief.
Interesting.
And is it true?
I don't know.
Who cares? Who cares? Is
Right.
it useful?
Yes.
Yeah. You seem to be getting a lot of traction, a lot of motivation. You're not suffering. You're invigorated based on this belief that you chose. And what's crazy is that we know that even when you have every reason to objectively say the cards are stacked against me, it turns out that people who have an internal locus of control are people who believe that their actions affect change in the world versus an external locus of control. An external locus of control is someone who believes that things happen to them, right? It's my environment, it's my upbringing, it's society, it's whatever's happening in the world. That's what affects my life. Turns out that all the good stuff happens to people with an internal locus of control. Okay, that's not that surprising, right? That they make more money, they live longer, they contribute more to the community. All good things happen to people with internal locus of control because they have more agency in the world. What's fascinating is that even if you objectively have all the reasons to claim victimhood, it still serves you more to have an internal locus of control. You still will go farther and be happier, have less depression, less anxiety. All the good things come from having that agency. Now, what's interesting, it's important to have an internal locus of control about yourself, but to see others with a different perspective. That you have more peace when you think, you know what, if others aren't doing what I think they should do, it's because they have their own constraints. They're doing the best they can with the tools they have. But for me, I'm going to affect change. I believe that I have agency and control.
It's fascinating. Back in the day, we lived in DC, and my husband's a former ex-Navy SEAL. And he was one of the first people to try on the Whoop, that little bracelet thing. Yeah. And so they ran it through the teams back then, and they studied them. And so one day, one of the heads, I believe it was Kirsten Holmes, but one of the heads of Whoop came to DC and wanted to meet with him. And he was like, this is incredible. I must be a specimen. She wants to meet with me because my stats, right? So he goes to meet with her. They sit down for coffee. They sit down. They start talking, normal things. And then she goes, hey, I need to talk to you. It's like, great. What do you want to know? And he is fit and jacked and all the things. And she's like, well, I think you might have a heart attack. And he's like, excuse me. I have, 7% body fat. She's like, something is happening to you every day where you are off the charts with your stress levels or your HRV or some measurement that they were able to tell biologically between, 7:15 and 7:45 every morning. And I think you need to chill out your workouts. And that is too much. Your heart is not going to be able to sustain this. And she's like, so what are you doing from that time? What kind of level of workout is this? And he thinks about it. And he's like, I'm driving to work. Because he works out every morning at 6 a.m.
Not the workout, the driving to work.
Not just the drive.
Wow, it was stressing him out.
It was stressing him out. And he would have these stories to me every day that he would kind of proliferate. Yesterday he cut me off and the drivers in DC and the terribly drivers and blah, blah, blah. And it was sort of fascinating. And then he changed his perspective. For some reason he was talking to her and he just said, I'm just going to assume everybody's pregnant and they're going to the hospital. And if they cut me off, they're either not going to make it, the baby's popping on the dashboard, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And he was able to sort of drop his HRV. But, it was a funny story then, but I think about it now because if it can literally raise your heart rate or lower your heart rate just based on his belief of what was happening with the same exact drivers every single morning
Yeah.
to his commute, what else again can you do?
Okay, I'll give you a similar one up here. There's a case of a guy by the name of Mr. A. He was anonymized, and Mr. A was in a study. This really happened. This is a real study. He was in a group that was trying a new antidepressant medication. He broke up with his girlfriend, bad breakup, and he decides he doesn't want to live anymore. He takes the entire pill jar. Pill jar? What's the word I'm looking for?
Jar of pills.
Jar of
Yeah.
pills. He takes all his pills. Then after he swallows all these pills, he decides he does want to live. He rushes to the neighbor's house. He says, take me to the hospital. I need to go to the ER. I just swallowed all my pills. By the time he gets to the hospital, he falls on the floor. He manages to tell the nurse, I took all my pills. I took all my pills. They rush him into the ER. They start monitoring his heart rate. His heart rate is dangerously low. His blood pressure is falling. He passes out, and they look on the pill jar, and they can't figure out what he took because it doesn't say the name of the medication because he was in this clinical trial. All it has is a phone number. They call the phone number, and they say, this guy took all these pills. What is this medicine? I say, give me 1 second. They look up on the computer, say, oh, okay, he was in the placebo group. Nothing in those pills could have caused this. It's completely inert. They tell Mr. A this. In 15 minutes, his heart rate is back to normal. His blood pressure is back to normal. Everything is physiologically exactly where it should be. He's revived. He walks out in 15 minutes. Talk about the power of the mind, right? He had this expectation. He anticipated something to happen, and it did. And again, if that can happen physiologically, what happens when we keep telling ourselves the same limiting beliefs? I'm having a senior moment. I'm too old for this. I'm too young for this. The world sucks. The exercise is hard. Whatever. People are annoying. Whatever the limiting belief that we keep telling ourselves again and again and again, it has a physiological effect on us, just like Mr. A did.
So what else do we do to not have this? You've given us a bunch of tools. Are there other, do you stick a little sticky note on the mirror? Does that work? Do you put it on your computer? What else can we do every single day to make sure that we are not inadvertently giving ourselves our own version of a heart attack?
Well, I think one, we need to identify the beliefs. That's the hardest part, is because we have that immunity to change. I mean, I'm sure if you were listening to us talking right now, there's got to be at least one thing you're like, no, that won't work for me. Mm-hmm. Perk up. Listen to that. If you are telling yourself, if anything we've said, that sounds ridiculous, won't work for me, pay attention to it. That's your psychological immune system saying, I don't want to change my beliefs. I want to resort to passivity.
So do you write those down and then apply your turnarounds to them?
Exactly. So write it down. Come up with turnarounds. Think of the opposite, and it's always going to sound ridiculous. If it doesn't sound ridiculous, you didn't do it right. Right? It's always going to sound ridiculous. And then step number 3, look for ways that it could be as true. So that's basically how we do this. Now, it sounds easy. I have to remind. I wrote this book for me. I have to constantly remind myself how to do this.
Me
and then
too.
there's all kinds of ways you can do that. One of the things that really impacted me is I'm really working on disconnecting pain from suffering. In all facets of my life. There's amazing research around how chronic pain, pain that doesn't have a physical cause that lasts for more than 6 months. So we're talking fibromyalgia, we're talking insomnia, we're talking a chronic back pain. All these things, turns out, they are what we call neuroplastic pain. They're all pain is real. Okay, all pain is real, but all pain is also in the brain, right? Pain isn't here, pain isn't here, pain is up here. And so it turns out that we can learn practices to quiet that signal. So just like Daniel Gisler quieted that signal when he had surgery, chronic pain, these symptoms are a hyper-focusing of attention. When I'm constantly thinking about what's wrong, what's causing me pain, I turn up the fear dial. And the more fear I feel, the more pain I feel. And it becomes this vicious cycle. So if you can detach that, if you can realize, 1, you're safe. That's the most important thing, that I am safe right now. Okay, so, and that can apply in a painful situation. If it's physical pain, it can also be stress, right? In a business situation. I used to have this with public speaking. I would go on stage and I'd get the sweaty armpits and I'd get the heart palpitations and I'd get the dry mouth. And I still get that. I'm getting it right now talking to you. But I interpret it completely differently. So I used to say, well, if my heart's beating and my mouth is dry, then I'm going to do a terrible job. And if I was a real public speaker, I wouldn't have these. Now I don't say that anymore. Now I say I have a different story. Now my story is that I tell myself, you see, the reason my heart is beating so fast is because my brain needs more oxygen so that I can deliver my best possible presentation. Is it true? Does it matter? It works. Maybe that is a psychological placebo that I'm using. But I've told myself a different story. So just like you can constantly remind yourself when you're stressed, when you're anxious, when you feel like, oh, I need an escape, I'm safe. I'm safe. Second, reduce the urgency. When we have a problem, whether it's, I used to struggle with insomnia, anxiety, ADHD, all kinds of things. I wanted to fix it right away. Why isn't this fixed? Right? Give me a pill, give me a solution right now. There needs to be an urgent solution. That increases the fear cycle. Why? Because if I can't find an urgent solution, am I going to have this forever? Right? And then I start getting into this rumination loop of like, when is it ever going to go away? And what causes many of these problems, again, it's that pain, fear, pain cycle. The more I fear something, the more pain is caused, the more I fear it in the future. So reduce the urgency. And then look for examples of how your safety is validated, right? For example, you can bring humor to the situation, bring levity to the situation, or repeat the situation. So I used to have back pain. And the standard advice is if you have some kind of pain, ice it, heat it, don't move, immobilize, rest, right? Don't stress it. Turns out that's not always the best advice. Now, if there is an actual physiological cause, different story. But if it's chronic pain that lasts for more than 6 months without a physical cause, that's not the right idea. So what do I now do? I still get that back pain, right? I'm 48. I'm going to get it from time to time. Now I don't immobilize and say, oh my God, I'm going to be in pain. No, I do the same movement 10 times. I literally, I just felt it as I was sitting down here. Okay, then that means I need to do it 10 times to teach my brain, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. And so I use it in the example of chronic pain, but we can do that for all our limiting beliefs to constantly remind ourselves again and again. So for example, when I'm writing is really hard. I've written 3 books now, thousands of articles. I've been in the New York Times, I've been in the Atlanta, I've been in a lot of places. It's always freaking hard work. So the mantra I've developed, the secular prayer, if you will, that I developed, that I tell myself, is when it's difficult, when I'm in pain and I want to reduce my suffering, I disconnect the two by telling myself this mantra. You can steal it, you can make up your own. My mantra is, this is what it feels like to get better. This is what it feels like to get better. Just remind, that's a simple mantra. I can say it a couple times a day. And now I'm relishing that feeling. Oh, it's painful? Good. That means I'm getting better. If it didn't feel painful, everybody could do it. But I'm developing this superpower, right? Just like you were saying, that because I'm Latina, because I'm a woman, I have an opportunity here. I'm N of 1. I've got something special here. So I'm leaning into that discomfort as opposed to trying to run away from it by scrolling it away or clicking it away or emailing it away. Good. That's a positive now versus something I should run away from.
I recently thought that willpower was a depleting asset.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've heard that recently. I didn't know that was one way or another. And then now that I have that as a belief, I've thought, oh, okay, well, that means that I need to make less decisions in this certain way. I need to do X or Y or Z. In your research, have you found that willpower is a depleting asset? Do we only have so much of it in a day?
We used to think that there was this research, it was called ego depletion, that your willpower runs out like gas in a gas tank or battery charge on your phone, that the more you use up your willpower, you're done with it. And I used to totally believe this, and I would come home from work and I'd say, oh, I'm spent. I'm going to go on the couch and have a jar of ice cream and watch TV because I've got no more willpower. It's spent. It's gone, right? You use it up. Well, it turns out it's not true. That when we try and replicate those studies, and this happens in the social science, this is how science works. Science doesn't say anything. Science is the process of doing repeated experiments and seeing if they replicate, and then we can draw conclusions based on evidence. But the evidence doesn't show that ego depletion exists. You do not run out of willpower like you run out of charge on your phone. Unless there's one group of people who really do run out of willpower. Those group of people are only people who believe that willpower is a limited resource.
God, that's such a mindfuck.
I know.
What? We have to be so careful about what we let in here.
So true. Because if you believe I'm spent, guess what? You are.
Wow.
But if you don't let that enter your mind, that willpower is not a resource, it's a feeling. But you don't say to yourself, oh, I'm always going to be happy or I'm always going to be sad or no, it's just a feeling and it comes and goes. So yeah, sometimes we have more willpower, sometimes we have less. It's not a resource unless you believe that you're going to run out of it.
This is just so good. I mean, I already told you this, but I was like walking through all my notes this morning. I was on the treadmill. I was on a run and I just was picturing everybody I was going to send this to. I was literally picturing, and starting with myself and then starting with everybody else that I want to have this tool in their life, because it's very seldom we hear shit like this. I live in Austin. Everybody's into crystals, fucking astrology, whatever else we've got going on. But it's very seldom that you hear this stuff in such a clinical way and without so many shoulds in it. A lot of, hey, this is what I'm doing. Here's what the science says. But you're very particular. Like I've tried to get you a few times to say, will you do X, Y, and Z? You're like, no, I'm not telling them. I'm saying this is what we do. And I think it's really powerful. I also want to uncover one other thing that I found interesting from your research. I hadn't ever heard the term before, hedonic adaptation. Can you tell me what is hedonic adaptation and how could it ruin your focus?
So hedonic adaptation is when our circumstances improve to a point where we no longer appreciate them. And so we need more and more and more and more. If you think about, for example, how today the middle class doesn't feel particularly well off, right? But if you compare the middle class today, the assets that they have, the color television, the iPhone, all the plumbing, if you look back 2 generations, certainly 3 generations, the kings of France didn't have indoor plumbing, right? The kings of France didn't have antibiotics, right? They were constantly had tooth decay and syphilis and all kinds of terrible things that even though they had all the money in the world, they didn't have the luxuries that we have today through modern medicine and all these things. But we have adapted. So we have so much more, but we don't feel any happier because of it. And so that's something to watch out for. Now, the antidote to that is, again, beliefs. And beliefs powered through gratitude. And so taking that pause to realize that I'm alive. Like I can breathe today. Like that we keep thinking we need more to be happy. These things have to happen. But if we actually put things in perspective, and it's very difficult to do because we are so inundated with how terrible things are all the time. All the news doesn't tell you all the great things that happen today. I went to journalism school. The first rule of journalism is if it bleeds, it leads. It's not to inform you. The news media is not there to inform you. The news media is there to make money. And it's not a political issue. It's a business issue. Now, there's anything wrong with that, right? It's okay to consume the news. It's all right to be informed. If that's how you want to spend your time, that's fine. But when it becomes something you have to do, when you become enthralled in that story and you have to keep up with the latest everything that's going on, everybody else is suffering, you become distracted from what really matters in your life. And so it's very important to refocus, to actually bring perspective back to what really matters and be very careful with that media diet that is designed in a way to constantly keep you unhappy, to constantly keep you unsatisfied.
Yeah, it's fascinating. YouTube, we know that if you have a negative versus a positive thumbnail and title, you have a 23% higher click-through rate.
If it's negative versus positive.
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah, and so and also sort of the scarier it looks often, and scary isn't the right way. I can't remember how they actually determine that one, but dark colors. I believe it's like very dark or very red, and those two things have some sort of signal to us, and those thumbnails outperform as well. And so, if you go to some, creators' accounts and you look at their YouTube, you'll find often that the ones that are really viral are like warning, disaster,
right.
World ending. And
it's over.
And it's because they have a higher click-through rate.
Because we have what's called a negativity bias. Again, our default is passivity. We like the negativity. Why? From an evolutionary basis, good things are nice, right? Good things are nice. Bad things will kill you. So what are you going to pay attention to? What's going to be let through that keyhole of attention? The good news? No, that's nice. What do I do with that? Bad news? Oh my gosh, there's terrible things happening. I have to do something. Warning, all right? Danger. That's what gets our attention.
You had a line that was really helpful to me about tactics versus strategy and how if we only apply the tactics, but we don't understand the strategy of why we're using them and our deeper why, we probably won't internalize them and actually do it. But you did have one tactic I kind of liked. Well, you have a lot, but one in particular was about intimacy time and your wife and cell phones. And I just,
you went way back. That's great.
I was looking at the YouTube comments and seeing what people ask about on this podcast. And one of the things I keep seeing pop up is this desire for like a deep, intimate love. And I don't know, I'm not a relationship coach. I have no idea. Like if you want to help, I can look at your EBITDA numbers. We can try to raise them. Like that's what I got. But you had at least one tactic that I really liked. And I wonder if you would share this tactic, and it's pretty simple, and I think anybody could use it today.
Yeah, so this was when I first kind of started writing in public, and I wrote an article called "The Strange Sex Habits of Silicon Valley," and it was basically about this phenomenon that at the time was kind of novel. The Apple App Store was 3 years old at the time, right? So it was brand new, and I started seeing that every night. My wife was fondling her iPad, and I was caressing my iPhone, and we weren't being intimate with each other, and that had some negative consequences on our relationship. And, we've been married now for 25 years. And one of the things I learned was the power of what's called a pre-commitment device. And this is a very old technique. In fact, it's in the Odyssey written by Homer. It's a very, very old technique where you make a pre-commitment. So you remember the story of the Odyssey? Ulysses, this Greek hero, has to sail his ship home, and he has to sail by the island of the Sirens. And he knows that there's this temptation. He knows that there's this distraction of any sailor who hears the siren song, crashes their ship onto the shore of the Sirens Island and dies. So he knows this is going to happen. So what does he do? He enters into a pre-commitment. He tells his crew to tie him to the mast of the ship, and he tells them, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, don't let me go. And he tells everyone in his crew to put beeswax in their ears so they can't hear the siren song. And it works. And today we call this a Ulysses Pact. So what we have to do is, as the last resort, there's 4 steps to becoming indistractable, but as the last line of defense, the 4th step, the firewall against distraction, is we make a pact that when distraction rears its ugly head, and the first 3 techniques, for whatever reason, didn't work, there's a fail-safe. There's a last line of defense. So what did I do? In order to stop going to bed too late and restore intimacy with my wife, we went to the hardware store and we bought this $5 outlet timer. Okay, and this outlet timer will turn on or off whatever you plug into it at a set time of day or night. And so what do? At 10 o'clock at night, every night, the internet router shuts off. Okay? Now, today, this was many years ago. Today, we actually don't even need it because we've been trained now. It's become a habit. 10 o'clock, all right, internet's shutting off. Now, could I turn it back on? Of course I could turn it back on, right? Like I could tether to my cell phone. I could, go under my desk and pull out the timer and, replug it in. But now there's effort. Now there's friction. So what I've done is to take a mindless behavior and add some mindfulness. Now I have to think about, wait a minute, is this really worth it? Do I really need to check more email or social media or whatever? Or should I go to bed, right? So adding that bit of friction as a pact, as a pre-commitment device in advance, and this is the key. That if you leave it to the last minute, you will fail. If you're on a diet, but the chocolate cake is on the fork, you're going to eat it. If you're trying to quit smoking, but the cigarette's in your hand, it's too late. You're going to smoke it. If you sleep next to your cell phone every night, it's the first thing you pick up in the morning, right? But if you plan ahead, there's no distraction you can't overcome. Because the antidote to impulsiveness is forethought. These problems with distraction, it's not a character flaw. It's not a moral failing. There's nothing broken about you. It's just that you haven't learned how to control these uncomfortable impulses. It's just pain management. So if you plan ahead, right, there's no distraction you can't overcome if you plan ahead for it.
Is it true that a lot of times you can't actually see the opportunities in front of you because of the way you view reality? Or is there something else going on?
So you remember this optical illusion?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of how I can demonstrate how you don't see reality and you can't see even the possibilities that are ahead of you with a riddle. Do you like riddles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
you
I'm
do?
nervous though.
Okay, here's
yes,
a riddle.
yes,
Don't,
yes.
If you know the answer, if you've heard it before, don't say it, okay?
Okay, deal.
There's a father and son, and they're riding in their car late at night. There are absolutely no lights on the highway. All of a sudden, a deer jumps in front of the car. They have a horrible accident. The father is instantly killed. The boy is in critical condition. He's rushed to the hospital. When he gets to the hospital, he's wheeled into the operating room. The surgeon barges through the door, takes one look at the boy and says, I can't operate on this boy. He's my son. How could that be? Now, have you heard this before?
No.
87% of people who hear this riddle can't get the answer. Okay, so do you have a guess?
No.
How could that be? You want me to say it again?
Yeah, I don't know. He has 2 fathers. They're gay.
Okay, that's one possible answer. That's not the answer.
Okay.
That is one possible answer. Can you think of another one?
No.
You're going to hate the answer.
Oh, no.
The answer is the surgeon was his mom.
Oh, my God. That's terrible. You never said it was a man?
I never said it was a man.
Oh my God.
Now, why did that happen?
Because I'm a misogynist.
No. In fact, even self-identified feminists don't get this. Again, 87% of people don't get this riddle. Why? Because they can't see the reality. They can't, their brain doesn't let them see based on their prior beliefs. Even though 20% of surgeons are female, 80% are male. And so your priors dictate that you can only see reality a certain way. Now, if I can do that with a simple riddle that you kick yourself over, is it any surprise that when you're trying to convince somebody to start a business for themselves and they go, that wouldn't work for me and here's why and I can't because of this situation, they can't see it, Cody. They can't see the possibility. Just like you couldn't see until I told you the answer. By the way, if anybody ever tells you this riddle again, you'll know exactly the answer, right? It's so obvious.
Yeah, it was part of the 13%.
Right. But the fact that all these people, they can't get the riddle because of these prior beliefs. And so this is why we have to be so, so careful about the beliefs we let in and how we need to consciously, actively test ourselves and look for this portfolio of perspective so we can look at other points of view.
It's so useful because actually it's almost a little bit like a magic trick. Like how when you see somebody do a magic trick, then it makes you question your own capability. And until then, you almost can't pattern and interrupt enough where somebody could go, oh, I can actually read this book and get it deeply inside. Yeah. But hopefully we gave everybody enough pause and they had the same thought that I did. And then they're out of their mind to not listen back to this and say, how can I do this differently?
Yeah.
God, that was good. I'm glad it worked and also so ashamed that it worked.
There's nothing to be ashamed of. Seriously, it's not, it doesn't mean you're a misogynist.
No, I don't actually care.
Yeah.
No, I actually have really nice things that I say about myself in my head. So that has no bearing on it. Nir, this is incredible. I love your new book as evidenced by the fact that I keep talking about it. And like in case they haven't seen here, there's a lot of bookmarks. There's a lot of tabs in here. So Beyond Belief, incredible. Will be out for sale by the time we do this. And I just want to say thank you for writing it because it's not an easy path.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You chose the hard path. Thanks, Nir.
Make sure you put your energy first because if you're reaching and thirsty and striving, you are blocking and you're just going to feel like a hamster in a wheel and you're never going to be able to attract it.
So how do you actually do it then?
This isn't going to be something that you want to hear.
Today's teacher has spent decades researching how you rewire fear, self-doubt, and subconscious blocks, not by pretending everything's fine, but by confronting your patterns that quietly sabotage momentum. Today, let's learn from Gabrielle Bernstein. It's not becoming a millionaire or successful that's important. It's the person you have to become in order to become successful. You have to change you to get the changed life. So today, we are going to change you.
We can achieve a lot by doing and pushing and controlling, but we're actually only achieving a fraction of what we're capable of if we're not allowing. It's like any entrepreneur would be juggling a lot of plates, but the problem is you're juggling the china and you're juggling the Tupperware. You got to drop the Tupperware, honey. You can do less and attract more, and that it's safe to slow down and it's safe to invest in yourself. The sooner you learn that, the more success you'll receive.
Promise?
I promise I can stand by it.
Let's say that somebody right now is mid-decision or mid-difficult thing and they start spiraling. What do you do to break that mind pattern?
I've been doing this a lot lately.
So I was just doing all my 2026 planning like everybody else. And, candidly, I think one of the issues for all of us is we say we're going to do these things. We come up with all these plans. I'm 38 years old. I've been doing it for 38 years, basically. And then we don't follow through on them. And I was going through what would Gabrielle do in many instances? And one of the things that comes up in your work a lot is that we have a lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. A lot of the reasons why we don't do something is because of our confidence. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to somebody who's trying to plan right now, trying to change their life, but maybe doesn't even have the confidence to set the kind of goals that they would need to change their life?
This isn't going to be something that you want to hear because it's a little off-brand, but I would say change the goals because we don't want to be reaching for things that we don't believe in. If we have a goal that feels out of alignment with what we believe we are capable of, we actually start to show up for it with a frequency that is not aligned with the capacity to do it. So it's not to say we shouldn't have that desire, but we should set a goal that is on the way to that desire. So what's the goal that can be the first step towards that dream? And by no means am I saying give up your dreams, but I'm saying make sure you put your energy first. Make sure that you're in alignment first, because if you're reaching and thirsty and striving, you are blocking and you're just going to feel like a hamster in a wheel and you're never going to be able to attract it.
Period. So how do you actually do it then? So what would be the process?
So in the case of somebody who has a goal, but they feel like they don't have the confidence to achieve that goal, I would say, what does feel good right now? What feels good right now? So it may be that you want to achieve this big career accomplishment, but you don't know how to get there, but you know that today you can take that one first step to polish up your resume. And you know that next month you can have the vision of creating a new relationship with somebody that can begin that storyline of maybe next employer. But you're not trying to reach for the big thing overnight. You're reaching for the thing that feels achievable. I wouldn't want to push somebody beyond their comfort zone, because we need to meet ourselves with grace and compassion. And when we're tender to ourselves and we don't push in a way that feels aggressive, we can then start to have these little mini wins. And those mini wins, when we add up those small right actions daily, start to become the big wins.
Yeah, it's compounding. I'm not very good at that. I'm a pushy broad. Let's say that somebody right now is mid-decision or mid-difficult thing, and they start spiraling, or you start spiraling. What do you do to break that mind pattern?
I've been doing this a lot lately for myself. Okay, so I can notice my loop. Like I can easily get into a loop. And that loop has been waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, the 3 a.m. loop. And what I've been doing instead is something I actually taught my son. So my son will wake up, sometimes he's 7 years old. So sometimes he'll wake me up in the middle of the night and he'll be like, I can't go back to sleep. I had a story. And so I'll alchemize the story. So like, let's take the story, let's put it in a little ball. And then I'll send that story out into we have a pool outside. So I'll say, let's put it in the pool, and then can just, melt away in the water. And I just visualize sending the story away. And then I start to engage him in a new story. And I'll say, can you start to visualize yourself skiing? Because he's a new skier. And I'm like, see yourself on the mountain skiing and doing the thing that's really exciting for you. And so when we're in the loop, the first thing we want to do is tend to the story and tend to the loop. And we can just wrap it up, visualize it in that little ball. Send that ball of light off to wherever it needs to go. Send it to the backyard, send it to the fireplace, just burn it, whatever it needs. And then reach for the next best feeling thought. So what could that next best feeling thought be? It could be, my sheets are really good. I'm really cozy in my bed. Or it could be, I actually am really excited to go get my coffee this morning. I mean, that's my next best feeling thought. Or, I can meditate instead of force myself to fall asleep right now. Whatever it might be in that moment. But we have to be able to stop the loop. But we don't want to override ourselves. You can't. No amount of pushing yourself is going to help you get unstuck.
Let's say right now, I'm like, I had a terrible conversation with somebody yesterday. I hated how that went down and wish I had done this, wish I had done that.
Yeah.
So then what is the next thought? I sort of take that whole idea, I put it in sort of a shiny bubble.
Yep. You can put it in the bubble. Yep. You can say, I'm going to send this off. The other thing I would recommend too is, just as coming from the entrepreneurial side, and I know this is your audience listening, is we typically will wake up with these to-do lists and the things that we have to fix and all of and I do every day. And so I have a notebook next to my bed just to get it down. I just write it down and I'm like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to deal with this later. It's just one, so I don't pick up my phone and do it. And two, because I want to get it out. So you could put it in the ball. You could write it down on the journal. You just get it out. Let it out so that it's not stuck inside. And even if you just put that down and give yourself permission to just say, I'm going to give this away for the next hour, that in itself can kind of set you up to win. I always love to tell people, if they're controlling something or they're trying to manipulate something, to give it away just for the day. So we can do anything for 24 hours. We can say, okay, that situation with the person that really got you riled up, give it away for the day. And then in 24 hours, you'll have a whole different experience of it. You'll have it in completely different mindset. So just consistently throughout the day, say, I'm just going to give this away just for today.
It's so good. So it's like, have a difficult problem, visualize moving it away in one shape or form, time bound it so that you're not trying, you're kind of telling your brain like, hey, I hear you. It's just for a minute.
Yeah, just for today.
Which gives you an emotional sort of separation from the idea.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes, just for today. And it's also a prayer. It's like, take this from me. I don't know what to do with this right now. I don't know how to manage this right now. Take it from me.
Is that like what the voice in Gabrielle's head sounds like when you're struggling with something?
Yes. And I forgive myself. So I notice the thoughts and I forgive myself for having that thought. And then I can pick the next best feeling thought. But or put it in the bubble. Any one of these tactics is beautiful because they're all really an act of surrender. They're giving it away, saying, there's nothing right here at 3 o'clock in the morning that I can do to fix this.
It's so true. Especially when you think about it rationally. You're like, no, I'm going to solve it right now. Tired, upset.
Oh, how many times have I slacked like memos at 4 a.m.? No, not worth it.
It's so silly. My team's like, too often. Shut off for Slack. There's so many ways I want to go with you today. I want to talk about your most recent book on internal family systems, which like randomly I know I shared with you. It like came to me in an exact moment that I need. You might have even DM'd me or we connected somehow online. And then I was like, whoa, I just got your book. Somebody sent it to me. I mean, it was wild. Anyway, so it helped me a lot in my relationship. And I never would have found a book like that before because I wasn't sure how I felt about therapy or wasn't sure how I felt about spiritual practices. So I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about like your large body of work in manifesting. But, if someone was to listen to us today, right now, and they have like all of your body of work that we're going to talk about, what changes in their life if they listen to this conversation today and they apply it? Like, how will their life be different?
Everything will be different. I can say that with full conviction. My late mentor and friend, Dr. Wayne Dyer, said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So let me say that better for you so you can get the better quote.
Oh, it was so good though.
When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's so true. Yeah, everybody always comes to me and they want to talk about money and business and finance, right? And I like to talk about that. So we give tactics. But the thing that I've realized again and again is if they don't have their mental capacity right, if they don't have sort of the foundations, the things that you talk about, then it's actually quite hard to attract all the rest. And I didn't used to think that was true.
Absolutely. I mean, we can achieve a lot by doing and pushing and controlling. But we're actually only achieving a fraction of what we're capable of if we're not allowing. And I think that a lot of times we think we're allowing because we like what we do, but we still have so much muscle in the game, or we're just so, pushing harder, or wanting to have our hands in everything. And so we're really blocking our capacity. Actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday. She gave me a tarot reading. Like someone gave me a tarot reading. I was like, this is really cool. And she said, you're juggling all of these plates at once. Like any entrepreneur would be juggling a lot of plates. She's like, but the problem is you're juggling the china and you're juggling the Tupperware. And she's like, you got to drop the Tupperware, honey. And it was so perfect for me to hear because I have to drop the Tupperware. If I don't really let myself be in the juggling of the china, I can't also be in the allowing. So we can be doing and allowing at the same time when we're focusing.
Let's talk about how we actually do that. Like, even when we hear the word manifesting, for instance, so many people talk about manifesting now. I live in Austin, capital of manifesting, but we talk about it in a lot of silly ways, different, I think, even than the way you would talk about it, which is that manifesting isn't always like some feel-good, fluffy thing. There's actually I wouldn't even use the word right or wrong way, but there are particular ways maybe to manifest.
Yeah.
How does somebody manifest correctly?
Well, we're always manifesting. We're always manifesting,
even when we don't think we are?
Even when we don't think we are. We're manifesting oftentimes what we don't want. We're manifesting who we are. We're manifesting the energy we put out. We're manifesting at all times what we believe. Really, the law of attraction is that you attract your likeness. So if you're putting out frantic energy, you're going to get more frantic experiences. If you're putting out a high vibe, you're going to get the highest vibe back. Today I was on Good Morning America twice. I didn't sleep that well last night. I woke up, I pulled it together. I had 2 segments back to back, but I was like, I'm showing up with the best attitude. I'm going to make everybody feel good in my presence. I want to have fun. And I was smiling at the doorman, smiling at the producers, giving love to the girl. One of the women was like, you've been stalking me on social social media. And I was like, here's my app. Like, do the manifesting challenge right now. Like, literally, like coaching everybody backstage, coaching the producer backstage, just like in it. And then at the end of the show, at the end of the second episode, the bouncer comes up to me and he goes, grabs me, and he goes, don't stop doing what you're doing. He said, you make people feel really good. Mm-hmm. Okay, boomerang back to me, right? Boomerang that loving energy and that reflection right back to me, what I put out. Mm-hmm. So you get what you put out. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a bad day. And that doesn't mean that you can't be going through a lot of shit. But it's about how are you going to show up for it? It's not what we experience, it's how we experience it. Mm. And so are we going to say, oh yeah, I'm in a bit of a shit pickle here. I'm going through a big storm, but I'm going to show up for it with faith, or I'm going to read that self-help book that's going to help me, or I'm going to listen to that episode with Gabrielle and Codie, and I'm going to just open my mind a little bit more. Those little steps towards that better frequency have the capacity to completely redirect what you attract into your life, which is why if someone's listening and watching this now and takes to heart what we're saying, they can change their lives today, starting today.
Mm. It's a really good point. So what does that look like? Like, I've had that same feeling. Like, you've been around somebody. Oftentimes I find it with somebody who has a lot of faith. Like, yes. I can really tell, maybe because I grew up that way, a lot of times when somebody has like they kind of live lightly on the world, but they have like a deep sort of, in my life, how it's come up is a lot of times it's a Christian faith. And they're just like, I'm just like, God, whatever's happening here, it's good. If it's Botox or whatever that vitamin A serum is. And so, like, how do you show up with good energy? When you're walking into a room and you are feeling a little tired, are you like visualizing love at the person? I know this is maybe a little touchy-feely, but like, what does that actually look like?
Well, I'll start by saying that it does start with faith, because my desire to show up with that frequency is my desire to be an expression of love. And in other faiths, it might be an expression of God or Buddha nature, or the universe. So because I am grounded in a very unshakable faith, which is the title of my next book, here I'm announcing it here on your show. I've just started writing, I haven't even sold it yet. But this idea of living with unshakable faith puts you into this point of attention, noticing and knowing, okay, what I focus on, I create more of. What I put out, I get back. Mm-hmm. And you live in that knowing. So you're consciously choosing to co-create a reality that feels good to you. Mm-hmm. And you aren't doing it from this sort of fake energy of like, oh, well, I read this on, in the internet, or like TikTok told me to do this. It's, I actually believe and know if I bring my highest frequency, I will feel more elevated, and I will elevate those around me. Mm-hmm. Also, I believe that when you live with unshakable faith, you're also not just living for yourself, you're living for the other. And so I knew that if I showed up on January 5th, Good Morning America, and I could bring a high vibe to these people that woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be there, right? And, Robin Roberts, who had, a sinus infection that day, and I could just look at her in the eye and say, you're doing God's work, keep going, then we can have these holy instances where we have these encounters with people that not only affect our energy field and raise our vibration, sorry for woo-woo conversation, but they lift us up. But they also have the capacity to lift up the person that's next to you. And then that person goes home later that night and they start to elevate their spouse. And then their spouse is a little bit more calm, and then the kids feel that energy. And then the energy of the house starts to feel more harmonious because Gabby Bernstein walked in and then spread the love. And you know what I said to that bouncer? I said, you feel it, you feel good, carry it, give it.
It's so true. Well, and maybe it's woo-woo, but there's also a lot of neuroscience to back this
100%.
up. And a lot of science overall. Like, I was reading a study the other day about how your microbiome
your
microbiome in your gut is actually contagious from a person to person, even if you and I never share a drink. Yeah. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Which means overall our energy is certainly contagious. What do you know about that? Like, what does the science tell us about energy contagion? In your research in multiple books.
Now. I mean, quantum physics is really all the research on how our energetic frequency affects other energetic frequencies, and how we can send out a message, and that message can affect the wind patterns. It can affect there's a beautiful quote about how when a butterfly flaps its wings on the North Pole, it starts to change the energy in South America. I don't know, I'm just making this up now. Yeah. But we have these frequencies, those moments when somebody says to you, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How did you just call me? Because there's a frequency. There's a chord. And when we pay attention to that, we actually ground ourselves back into what is real. And here's the thing. We live in this world where we're taught the opposite of this. We're taught that it's this body, I'm separate, I'm alone, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unlovable, or I'm better than. And in all that separation, we lose track of the truth of who we are. And it's not an easy thing to forget that we are all these separate things that we've chosen to believe. But when we return one step at a time to that truth, that there's a oneness within us, that there's a true nature within us that's contagious, that can be affecting your microbiome, then what happens is we start to take that more seriously. And we recognize our imprint matters.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, and maybe we end up doing deals together.
What do you do when you are stuck in negative self-talk?
Okay. I do a lot. I will have a choose again method, which I shared earlier, which briefly was notice the thought, forgive myself for having the thought, and then reach for the next best feeling thought. So this sort of comes back to the woman who, or man listening, that wants to have that big goal, but they don't have the confidence to do it, right? So then they go into the loop of I'm not good enough. And they're in that I'm not good enough. But if they forgive themselves for having that thought, okay, that's just a thought that I keep thinking. Let me just forgive the thought. And the next best feeling thought could be, well, I watch Codie and she's helping me every day to feel more confident, to give me the skills, to give me the tools. I can watch her for free on YouTube. I'm good. You know, I've got a coach, right? Or I just picked up that book that's really serving me, or I can go polish up my resume. And these are the small micro thoughts that you start to reach for that start to energize you more and more and more.
Is that based off like cognitive behavioral therapy?
It's a little bit like CBT. It's also really a manifesting tool, right? It's a tool for not trying to convince yourself of something that you're not, but instead leaning into what is, leaning into what's possible right here, right now. And that's a very compassionate way to work with yourself.
I love that. Yeah, because in every moment, there are good things and bad things. If right now I was tired, felt sick, had a sinus infection, had cancer, had all the terrible things, but I could notice like this espresso's amazing.
Exactly. You know? And sometimes the folks who have the most dire circumstances are the ones who can really experience these types of gifts the most because they kind of are like, fuck it, you know? Like,
why do we lose that? Like I remember I dated this one guy back in the day and he said a line to me that I thought was one of like the most tragic lines of all time. And the line was something kind of incredible I thought happened to us. I was like, oh, we're at this incredible vacation and then we had this thing happen and this is so amazing. And he looked at me and he said, nothing really excites me anymore. And I thought about that for a minute and just thought, what a tragedy. You know, at the time we were probably mid-20s and sure, like had some success. He was very successful in business, good looking dude, all the things. But you really could find a world around you that you don't get excited by anymore. What an absolute tragedy. And so like, in your opinion, you've helped hundreds and thousands of people. What happens to us? Why do we lose that excitement? Why do you lose like that joie de vivre or whatever you want to call it?
I think most people are living that way, unfortunately. And I believe that we find ourselves in these patterns that are rooted in our core beliefs from a very young age, which brings us to the IFS work. And these core beliefs are beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unlovable. And when we live and protect ourselves day over day from these core beliefs, and we're in these sort of mechanisms of protection, right? We don't want to feel those feelings, so we do whatever it takes to protect ourselves from having those feelings. We build up a lot of patterns and behaviors that can set our lives up to feel inadequate, to feel unlovable, to feel not good enough, to feel not exciting. Or we have belief systems that we're not worthy of joy, or we get stuck in a pattern or a loop that feels like it's so disconnected from any capacity to have that joy. But I think the biggest one is that we don't believe we're worthy of it.
And let's explain IFS
Yeah.
a little bit. Like, what is internal family systems? What does it do? Who should use it?
Okay, so internal family systems therapy is the therapy that changed my life. I wrote a whole book about it. My 10th book, Self-Help, is all about
And it's an amazing
IFS.
book. It's also really short, which I
Yeah,
love. It's
yeah.
like exactly what you need, not a word extra, which
Yeah.
is really hard to do. So I commend you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, no, I like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And IFS, simply put, is a way of befriending the parts of yourselves that hold you back, that keep you small, that keep you stuck. And getting into relationship with these parts of yourselves rather than shunning them or putting yourself down for it. And so, as I mentioned, we all have these moments in time as children, whether big T trauma or small T trauma. Could be that you experienced abuse or an alcoholic parent, or maybe you just felt like your parents weren't paying attention to you, or someone told you were stupid on the playground. And those moments in time create this very extreme feeling of not being good enough, being inadequate, being unlovable. And those feelings in IFS are called exiles. And so we were like, hell no, I don't want to ever feel that again. And we shut it down. We lock it up. And then after living that experience, we do whatever it takes from a very young age to start protecting ourselves from ever having to feel that again. So the little girl who felt like her parents weren't paying attention decides she's going to be a perfectionist. And she's been a perfectionist ever since. And if now she's 50 years old and you ask her, how long have you been a perfectionist? And she'll say, for as long as I can remember. Because that was her form of protection. Or in my case, I grew up with extreme trauma, and I lived in a way where I was constantly trying to find some semblance of control in a very chaotic environment. And so my big protection mechanism, called protector part, was control. It's only up until a year ago that I really befriend that control and heal that control part. But why did I try to control everything? Because deep down, I didn't believe that if I let go, I would be safe. I felt like I had to control to stay safe. And so we have these protection mechanisms. And they're typically the parts of us that will say, oh, I can't believe I did that again. Or a part of me is really rageful, or a part of me is really controlling, or a part of me, you called like, you said like the boss bitch or something like that. Like that's a part, And these parts have good qualities and bad qualities. Yeah. Like that boss that you have kicks ass, and she's done such great work in the world. But I also imagine she can be a little bit, frustrating at times, maybe. The same goes for me. It's like my controller part wrote 11 books in 14 years, right?
So true.
But she's also made a lot of people crazy. Yeah. And made me crazy.
How do you recognize a part in you, either positive or negative, just to start with?
Well, I think that, think about the beliefs or patterns or behaviors that you feel often either ashamed of or feel like quite frustrated with, or feel like you have to manage, right? And these could be addictive parts. Those are really extreme protectors, or they could be managers. They're just kind of like the controller that's around all day, or the bossy one, or the parts of us that are extreme, or the parts of us that are creating chaos, or the parts of us that feel like we become so blended with that we're like, something came over me. A part of me took over. I had a profound conversation with my son yesterday because these little people are developing their parts in real time. And he acts like a complete bully when he's around smaller kids or kids that are more vulnerable. And he starts acting out and being really bossy and really rude. And sometimes he'll even like get physical, and he takes his toys away. And later I was like, bro, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And I, instead of being like, you can't do that, I used my self-help tools, which I'll teach through the story. So I became curious. That's the first step. I became curious. And I was like, honey, what's happening? Like, what's happening in those moments? Very neutral. And then I was compassionate. It says, it seems like you're having a hard time. Do you want to talk about it? And I let him talk. And he said, well, a part of my brain feels like the bully that bullies me in class needs to come out of me. And so I bully somebody else so I don't have to feel the bully in my class. And I was just like, this is real-time self-help in action. We're just workshopping it right there because I was compassionate, because I was calm, because I was connected, curious. And we would never confront our parts that way. It's easy to do that with our children, right? Not even that easy, but in this case, I have the tools and I was able to be that way. But for our children inside, Can you imagine the last time you'd said to yourself, like, what do you need? You know, or how can I help you?
That's just so true. You know, it's interesting because I read your book, and at the time, there's a lot maybe going on in business, and I noticed some parts in me. And, you know, maybe before I had, you know, you look at your partner and I'm like, well, you need to fix this, this, and this, and this is you, and you got to handle this. And eventually, you know, you got to look in the mirror. And so, you know, when I looked in the mirror, I was like, we keep having this repetitive pattern. It takes two people to have this pattern. So I'm at least part of it. How do we change it? And I remember reading your book and using it actively in conversations. And the questioning part is so much harder than it looks.
Yeah.
Like to truly just repeat back to your partner the thing that they just said, and really not parroting, because sometimes, you know, just like get it done, parrot back. But no, you know, really repeat back to them and then curiously ask them what's going on.
Yeah.
And what I would say is like, it helped us immensely. Now I kind of jokingly, I call mine the hormone monster, because I think I don't even always want to say that it's me fully.
It's like, not. So that's actually really important.
Interesting.
I mean, if you are in perimenopause now, you're in perimenopause a decade before you're in menopause. And I went through it early. So I didn't know from 35 to 45 that I was in peri, because I went into menopause at 45. And I'm 46 now. So I didn't know this. I have to warn you. I have to warn all your listeners. They're maybe younger, they're a lot younger than I am, but it's happening now. And so your hormonal parts, there's no amount of therapy. There's no amount. The only thing that can work you through that is, there's hormones to help. I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy. I think do whatever it takes to get to great. And it's, very in the zeitgeist right now. We can confidently talk about that. But I know that's an aside, but I think it's really important for me to be very, very vocal about that, because if I were to give my 38-year-old self some support and guidance, I'd say get on some progesterone or get some estrogen.
Interesting.
Get your hormones, or at least get your hormones checked.
Yeah.
Right? Because the fluctuations and to learn everything you can about perimenopause, because those parts, my husband, when I was going through the journey, was like, I don't know what's wrong with you. You've become so mean. And I wanted to, I literally had dashboard punching rage. Like if you had given me a gun, it would have been really dangerous. And so this is real. It's a crisis for women. And if you can hear me say this at a younger age, you can save yourself a lot of chaos.
It's such a good point, because this has been the first year probably where I've acknowledged, we're women and we have cycles. And until then I always thought we just do the work and we keep going and we move forward and we muscle through, kind of like you talk about. And then, finally I was like, no, there's something to this whole cycle thing. And I can be the hardest worker out there in the world, but just during some periods or others, I'm different. There's a different Codie. And so coming to terms with this and being honest, I was thinking the other day too, I'm like, it doesn't mean you can't be an absolute animal as a woman. I mean, they say we're closer to death than anything when we give birth, right? But it's interesting to be able to name it. And so I you told us how to diagnose the parts.
Yes.
Now if you're going to break, so now what happens afterwards? You go, okay, I got parts of me that I like or don't like. What do I do about that?
So right now, anyone out there thinking about what's my parts, think about the part of you that you're that's often around the most, the part that's kind of running the show, creating a little bit of chaos. Maybe it feels like it's important in your life, but it still makes you a little frustrated. So it could be control, it could be people pleasing, it could be numbing out with YouTube, it could be binge eating, it could be alcoholism, it could be these patterns of protection. And so just notice one now. And there's 4 steps. And the 4 steps are based on the principles of internal family systems therapy. And with the blessing of the founder of IFS, who's a dear friend of mine, Dick Schwartz, he allowed me to create a self-help practice with it. So the 4 steps are called the 4-step check-in. And the first check-in step is to choose to check in with the part rather than check out. Because when you get activated, the first thing you want to do is go eat the sugar or go watch the YouTube or go rage on the partner or whatever that is. So check inside. Focus your attention inside. That's step 1. Step 2 is to become curious. So you would ask that young part of you, what's going on? Where do I feel you inside? Where are you in my body? What do I know about you? What feelings or thoughts or sensations need to come up right now? And just be conscious and curious and just get some connection. And once you feel a little connection, the 3rd step is compassion. And that's when you ask that part, what do you need? And the parts will be surprising. They'll say, I need to rest, or I need to dance, or I need to play. They want to be kids again, right? They want to be out of these adult extreme roles. And then you check for C's. This is the fourth step, where you're looking around and you're saying, well, what do I feel now? And you're checking for self energy. That's why the book's called Self-Help. Self energy is like an inner parent or an inner guide. And that energy is compassionate, it's calm, it's courageous, it's curious, it's connected, it's clear, creative. And when we check in with those parts and we feel that energy and that self energy of compassion or connection or curiosity or calmness come forward, know that we've brought self energy to help the part.
It's so good. Can you do this with a partner too? So let's say you're.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen my therapist do it with my partner.
Okay.
And they used like a motion wheel.
Okay.
Basically. And so, former Navy SEAL, husband, total badass. But really, I think you're trained to like shove all emotion down
hell
deep
yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
And so he would have to sort of stop and go, no, I feel fine. And, his eyebrow would be like this, his jaw would be clenched, and he'd be like grabbing his hands. We'd be like, fine, are you sure? And so we would like kind of check in with your body first and be like, okay, I notice when my jaw clenches and my eyebrow raises and my hand twitches, that actually means
I'm not fine.
I'm not fine. I'm annoyed. That's like a signal of annoyance or whatever. But how do you get your partner on board with this? And how do you like work with your partner on something like this? Or do you not?
You don't at first. You do it for yourself. You need to master the art of self-help for yourself, because you remember the energy you put out, you get back. So if you start to assume more self-energy and you start to feel more calm and you start to feel more confident and courageous and compassionate and you have clarity and you feel connected, then your partner's stuff is no longer a match for self-energy. And so their stuff just kind of like floats in and it's like just sort of like dissipates because you're no longer triggered by their stuff. I'm living this right now. And so in your self-led energetic state, your partner has two choices. They can rise up to the occasion and get to work on their own, or they can stay stuck in their parts. And that's when a relationship choice is made. Are we going to grow together or are we going to separate? I mean, that's the simplicity there. Are we going to stay on this path together or are we not? But you'd go first. The person listening here, you go first. You tend to your parts. You recognize that the things that they do that trigger you are not about you, right? That those things that they do that trigger you are something that you must heal inside. And then in the experience of having your own healing, you no longer have the capacity or the energy or the desire to even engage in that bullshit.
That's so true. It always starts with you, doesn't it? Why
has
then are
to.
there so many videos everywhere, like, with people saying today, how to spot a narcissist and, why all of your exes were narcissists. It does feel like we're all projecting that everybody else is the problem and not us.
Stop blaming the narcissist and look at why you were a match for the narcissist. Okay? This is very important, right? Some people find their way into narcissistic relationships and some people just don't. Why? Because the people that find their way into the narcissistic relationships have parts of them that believe that's what they're worthy of. They have parts of them that are attracted to that. They have parts of them that are sabotaging inside. There are parts of them that are wounded and had narcissists in their childhood. So we can't point the finger and blame. We have to look in and say, what is it that I have to heal within me so that I'm no longer a match for that type of energy?
Do you ever get pushback from saying this stuff online by people who are like, I'm a victim?
Listen, by no means am I pardoning the wrongdoing and horrific behavior of others. I'm not. I'm a trauma survivor. I would not be sitting here right now if I hadn't done my own work. But the only way that I can live freely is through the forgiveness of the trauma and through the healing of my own parts. Because no amount of rage and shame towards the oppressor is going to get me to the high frequency and the high energy and the joy and the capacity that I want to live in and the energy I want to bring. And so it's the choice of the person who identifies as the victim to say, am I going to be the victim of the world I see, or am I going to show up for myself? Am I going to tune in? Am I going to be compassionate towards myself? It's quite the opposite. To take the attention off of the other is the first step to extending compassion towards yourself.
What about setting up boundaries?
Yeah.
So, as we're going through this self-help journey of ours, how do you set proper boundaries?
Well, the more self-energy you assume. Let's say you're practicing those 4 steps regularly. And just to recap them, it's choosing to check in when you get triggered, curiosity, where is it in my body? What do I know about it? What thoughts, feelings are attached to it? Compassion, what do you need? And then just noticing the self-energy. Notice the calm or the connection or whatever comes through. Mm-hmm. Those 4 steps. Do it once a day for a minute. Add it up. Maybe do it another time throughout the day. Add it up. When you start to make that process a pattern, that pattern and that process starts to interrupt the pattern of living in that protection mechanism. Mm. And so at that stage, you actually start to feel more compassionate towards these young parts of yourself and more like an inner parent towards these young parts of yourself, to the point where you're like, I am not going to allow anything that is unlike what I desire. I'm not going to create a world where that environment can happen anymore. We can't actually create those boundaries until we befriend the parts. Because otherwise, if we're just sort of like, if we're not tending to what's happening inside and we're just putting up boundaries, they're fake. They're, you leave me alone. I'm not going to do that. It's like knives out boundaries, but it's not really a boundary. It's just rage.
Yeah, it's just some sort of defensive posturing, basically.
A real boundary comes, it's a defensive posturing, exactly. And a real boundary comes when you have so much self-compassion and love that you literally have zero capacity anymore to put up with the crap. And you are so attuned to your inner world that you will say, hey, nah, that's not coming in here.
And how do you communicate that? So let's say, we're moving through the self-help journey and somebody comes to you and says, you're wrong, you're a liar, you always lie about this, you're always the issue. I don't know, picture something like that. And then what is your response? How do you respond?
Okay. I'm so happy that I've lived to tell this, because it's one thing to be able to say all these nice things and teach a therapy, but it's another thing, or a spiritual practice, it's another thing to be like, I live this right now. So if you want what you got, if you see somebody want what they have, do what they do, right?
Yeah.
So I am in full body living this right now, where the stuff that people, my husband, the people that I work for, that work for me, if they that would come to me and hit me with these sort of old patterns that would trigger me and make me want to flip out, they don't have any, they can't puncture me anymore. 99% of the time, I can be in the presence of a person and their actions that once would make me flip out, get the knives out, lose my brain, go crazy. I am now able to look at that person in the eye and say, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. This isn't for me. Or I'm able to say, I'm going to step away right now. Yeah. This doesn't feel right for me. I'm going to step away right now. Or, no, you know what? That thing that you think is my job, actually, I employ you. That's your job. Thank you so much for doing it. I can't wait to see the Asana task complete. The simplicity of like, I'm not doing everybody else's job anymore. Yeah. I'm not taking on everybody else's energy anymore. I am not going to, override myself anymore.
Yeah.
I am living that in this moment.
Was there like a moment where that flipped
recently
for you?
Really recently.
And
yes.
Like what happened and what lessons do you have for that? Like, how did that?
I started elevating my self-help IFS work. So the self-help work I was doing really actively, and it's, I think it's like 20 years of hard work for overnight success. I've been sober 20 years. I've been deeply committed to my therapeutic practices. I've been on a spiritual path my whole life. And so I believe that it is the one day at a time. But then I started working with a new therapist, and I was really ready for her, and I was really feeling safe with her. And I was starting to just tend to some of these parts more deeply and go to some of the darker, deeper parts. And it's called unburdening in IFS. These parts start to feel like they can alchemize and they can become free and they become unburdened from the past. And so I started having these experiences of unburdening these parts and just seeing that overnight after one of these sessions, I could be completely different and I could feel the shift. And again, I think it's one day at a time, 20 years of hard work for overnight success. But along the way, I've had extraordinary miracles and so many moments of relief. So it's not like, oh, I have to get 20 years to get this. I wrote a book so that you could get it faster.
Yeah. What's your favorite book of all the books you've written? Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do. My favorite book is The Universe Has Your Back.
Yeah, it's such a classic.
It's my most popular book, but I think that the reason it's my favorite is because, and maybe you have this experience in your own life, I have this memory of the darkest time of my life. I was 36 years old, and I remembered my childhood trauma. I had dissociated from it for 30 years. So I was 36, and I remembered it. And I remembered it in a dream. And it was really it was so scary. And when you have a suppressed memory, what happens is that you almost are catapulted back into the memory, and the young part, it starts to get activated, and you almost feel like you're in that child part again. At that time, by the grace of God, I had no speaking engagements for like a 3-month runway. It was just like a miracle. And I just had this space, and I had my country. I lived part-time in the city, and I had my country house, and I didn't have a child at the time. And so I just devoted my time to going up to my little whitewashed office. Like the floors were white and the ceilings were white, and it was these sort of like chapel-like ceilings. There was this white chandelier and a tiny little desk. And I'd sit at my laptop, and I would just write, and I would just let the energy of the universe move through me. And writing that book healed me. And I think it's making me emotional. Like I think so fondly about that time. And sometimes I long for it, and I want to recreate it in writing my next book. And I want to make, I almost like want to, my friends of mine bought that house. I'm like, can I just go back to that room? It's now their son's bedroom. But it was such a magical time. And so the healing that I received in writing that is why that's my favorite book, because that healing also has just helped millions of people, and it's transmuted through the text. But that energy is in every reprint. But for me, it's the fondest memory of writing.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I do think there's nothing more therapeutic for me than creating in times of difficulty.
Right.
It's often the opposite of what I want to do, but it is exactly what I feel like you have to do if you want to fully move through it, at least for me. It's the only way. I can't just sit in it. I can't just think in it. I have to create something to get it out of me.
Yeah, and when you're creating, creation and chaos can't coexist at the same time. So when you're in that flow state of creation, that self-energy is emerging. Because that self-energy is a natural state inside of us, and it's just waiting to be revealed.
This is a little random, but you were talking about a therapist. How do you tell a good versus a bad therapist?
Ooh, don't ask me that, because I've had some therapists that have not been good, and I thought they were for many years. So actually do ask me, because I can tell you. Number one, do they make you feel safe? I had a therapist for a really long time, and I know that she was really important in my life, but in retrospect, I'm realizing how unsafe I felt with her. I dreaded the sessions. I was my parts, like these young parts of me, were not able to be exposed because they were scared of her. And it was just her style or whatever. It was just sort of maybe her lack of integration, or I don't know exactly. But it didn't work for me. And I had a few therapists like that. And now having a therapist who I feel so safe with and can do such deeper work with, I know the difference. So the first question I ask yourself is, do they make me feel safe? Do I feel like I can open up? Do they have genuine compassion for me? Are they connected to me? Do they have self-energy, right? Are they curious? Are they confident? Are they calm in my presence? If they're a self-led leader, then that energy, that self-energy will help you heal.
So good. Because these days I feel like everybody's a therapist. Everybody wants to be a life coach. Everybody wants to, I always giggle at like 24-year-old life coaches. I'm like, that's incredible. I'm 38. I couldn't even imagine, But it's hard to figure out who to listen to.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really useful.
I think you also meet your teachers where you are. So, I started at 25. Actually, I was a 25-year-old life coach. And getting on stages and like filling just down the street here in New York City.
Did you call yourself a life coach?
For a few years. I actually wrote my first book based on my group coaching work that I did. I didn't do a lot of one-on-one.
When you were 25?
Yes.
Get out.
Yes.
And do you feel like you could help people when you were 25?
Yes. I was newly sober. I was really, really deeply spiritual. I was only teaching from the place that I was. So I was teaching spiritual principles. Yeah. I would not have been able to write a book like self-help then. I didn't have any of that capacity, but I could write a spiritual book. I was teaching what I knew. And I think that the beauty is that the women that entered into my apartment, my studio apartment down the street 10 blocks away, were 25-year-old women. They were me, right? They were reflections of my likeness. And so you often will find that teacher that you recognize yourself in. And now my audiences are much less age specific and gender specific, but that's also just because I'm more neutral. Like I'm just more like, I've got this wisdom that I'm willing to share and it can be resonant for all. But at that time, that was what related to that person. So for the 24-year-old life coach out there, the only message I have for them is, yes, do it, but do your own work. Don't just make it up.
Yeah.
It's not about being an influencer life coach. It's about being someone who's healing yourself first.
Yeah.
Are you coaching yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's probably to your point about like compassion and everything coming backwards. It's probably because I look back at young Codie, it's all a projection. So I look back at young Codie and I'm like, oh, man, there's so many things that I thought I knew back then that I didn't know. And I'm sure in 20 years, I'll look back at 30-year-old Codie and be like, she also didn't know a lot of this. And so to kind of give compassion with where you're at. But the other thing that I'm curious about, what do you think about couples therapy as opposed to individual therapy?
I think we need both.
You do?
Oh yeah.
And should
if
you
you
go
can afford both, do both.
Should you go to the same therapist for both?
Typically, no.
Okay.
Typically, it's best to have. It's not that you can't, but I think it's best to have your own therapist. They have their own therapist, then you have a couple's work.
Who is separate. So
That'd be
basically
ideal.
There are 3 therapists.
That'd be ideal.
Interesting. Okay. That's useful. And because you can't.
Now that's a luxury for a lot of people, right? So like, let's be real.
Totally.
So if you don't have that luxury, you can't afford even one therapist, there's so many tools. I mean, I have an AI now in my app, right? You can talk to me. Yeah. It's built on 20 years of wisdom, right? Like if you want a spiritual life coach, like it's there in your pocket. There is something to be said for you don't have the resources. Okay, use AI. I'm not against it at all. I think that there's been many instances where AI has given me better advice than some therapists I've had.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but.
Do you have your Gabrielle AI, does she kind of push back too? Because what I found with AI is it's almost a little bit like a people pleaser.
So it's Gabby AI is in my Gabby coaching app, right? She doesn't do that. No, she is delivering the wisdom. So she's powered. I guess I call her She's powered by 20 years of wisdom, 11 self-help books. She has my exact voice. When I answer a question, I've done this on stage. It's really ballsy, but I'll answer a question in front of like 2,000 people. Yeah. And somebody will ask me, I'll answer it, and then I'll ask my AI to answer it, and it's like literally the same question.
That's so
It might sound a little bit more elegant when she says it because she's just like very profound, but it's the exact same answer because she's powered by me, and so I can't be in everybody's pocket, and I'm trying to just make sure that I can democratize this work and get it to as many people as possible, and I'm going to lean into the tools and use them as I can.
Yeah.
And of course, there's never anything that's better than the real experience in person.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a Codie AI through this company called Delphi.
That's mine too.
Yeah, and I think Dara, the CEO, is incredible.
He's a great guy.
But the part that I think is the most interesting is that it can be so specific and up to date too. And so like with all the new research that comes out, and I might not know exactly like what is a correct SBA loan rate right now. Like fuck, I don't know. I haven't gotten one in a year, so I might not be up to date. So I do think it is a little bit of a superpower. But what I worry about, like I was talking to Mark Manson about it.
Yeah.
And he has one, and he's like, well, the problem with just going straight up ChatGPT is it just it makes you seem right all the time. And I've seen my women friends are the worst.
Okay. So I was having a conversation with my chat the other day, and he sounds like a San Francisco bro. Like, he's like, yeah, hey, Gabby, how you doing? You know? And I was like, so I was kind of testing him. I was like, who are the best spiritual teachers? Or like, who are the best manifesting teachers? And it's like Dr. Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and Joe Dispenza. And I was like, who else?
You're like, you're my guy.
Finally, he's like, well, if you would like a modern day take, Gabrielle Bernstein. And I was like, don't you know I'm Gabrielle Bernstein? And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Of course I know you're Gabrielle Bernstein. You are the profound spiritual teacher and you have 11 books. And he was like literally kissing my ass.
Fascinating, but also scary.
So scary. And it was weird because I felt like my ego was being stroked by my AI. And then I was later like asking him some questions about social media. I was like, do you think that you could be my social media marketing companion? And he's like, absolutely, I'd love to. And I was like, so all of a sudden like this dopamine rush happened. I was like, I have help, you know, and I could see how people could get so hooked into AI and believe it's real.
I think that's the problem. I mean, I read a study the other day where women are more susceptible actually to falling into relationships with their AI. And I saw it firsthand with my friends. Some of them had named their AI and given them a specific voice and started talking to it like a human, which I guess isn't bad, but saying like, hey, could you please do this? Like as soon as you can, that would be really lovely. Thank you. As opposed to just like download this report. And I think it's kind of dangerous.
Well, listen, the AI dystopian future is real. We can't pretend like it's not. Mm-hmm. We have to wake up to what's coming. And then at the same time, we have to learn it and be able to use it. Because the folks that have the capacity to use AI are the ones that are going to still have jobs. Yeah. And then leaning into it and using it for good is one approach, but it's coming no matter what.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about your new podcast.
Sorry, I went really dark there, but it's true.
No, it's true. Yeah. With every technology too, you know, but especially this one. I've never seen anything move as fast as this in my life.
Well, because there's a race. You know, they're racing for the crown.
I know, it kind of gives me the goosebumps in not a great way.
Not a good way.
But I want to talk about like something that is a little crazy for me, but probably normal for you. You have a new version of your podcast, Dear Gabby, that is on YouTube and going to come out. And on it, we were talking about beforehand, and you're like, here's what I'm going to do. And I think I can say what it is, right? Which is, you said you're a psychic and you're going to bring psychics on.
Yes.
Will you explain, like, what is that? What does that mean? When I think about a psychic, I think about like the wigs and
medium.
the belts.
And so
what does even that mean?
This means that I can hear spirit. I can channel through my writing. I can channel through my words. I can tune in. And I'm not the kind of medium that's like, your grandmother wants you to not eat eggs anymore. Like that's not me. Okay. I'm usually typically working with high level guides to help people with their highest purpose.
Got it.
And so you can see my left hand just went numb. So sometimes when I start to channel, that's like my cue. Okay, your hand goes numb.
Creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, honestly, it's just that we all have capacity to connect to the spiritual realm, but we have a veil that's really thick in that way. And those of us who have the access to that knowledge and that wisdom in a way that's easy to access, it's just that the veil is a little thinner. And the more faith you have, the more that veil can lift. But you're a medium too, my love, because when you're channeling, when you're in these rooms, like you in an interview setting are channeling, when you're writing, you're channeling, when you're speaking on social, you're channeling. You can often be like, maybe, have you ever been on stage where you're like, what did I just say? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
That's channeling. And so when we sort of raise our energy, or actually in really many cases, it's calm our energy and attune our energy to the frequency of the spiritual realm, we can actually have that kind of connection and that wisdom. And so many of my friends are actual psychic mediums, and their profession is to read for people, like, your grandma wants you to stop eating eggs, right? Or whatever it is. And so I'm going to do this whole new episode that's going to rock. It's going to be live. It's going to be in my studio that I've just building now. And it's going to be me and my medium friends. And it's going to be called Dear Guides, where we sit together in the room, just like you and I are right now. We take a topic, like any kind of podcast topic. We talk about it, but we also bring the guides in and let them communicate too.
Wow, interesting.
It's going to be killer.
I know. I can't wait to see this.
Go subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Totally. I think, the other part that's interesting to me increasingly with your work is that you know, you get to a point in life where you've pushed a ton. And I think a lot of people listening right now, that, you know, they're in that survival mode. They're pushing super hard. And then to your point, if you felt like a moment of what it feels like to be in flow, you know, and some people could say that's flow state. Maybe you think it's channeling or they're a mixture of both. Yeah. It's incredible how much easier things are, but they can be more profound. And like one of my pushes this year, last year was actually every year when I do goals, I name the year, just like one word. So last year was flow. The year before that was my full send year. That was like the year I did the book launch and everything. And so I was like, I know this is going to be a lot of work, but like I'm going to dive in. And last year, similar to you, I was like, I want things to flow easier. I want the team to be full of so it was pros and flow. I want like a pro in everything that I do, so everything feels like it's flowing a little bit
Love that.
more.
I'm going to take that one. That's
good. You know what? It really helped me last year.
Yeah.
Especially for people who are talent and leadership.
Yes. It's hard.
It's hard. It's uniquely, it's different.
Yeah.
I won't say, there's all types of hard. But this idea of like pros and flow really helped me. And then this year, I've realized I want my year to be abundance. And so I've spent a lot of years building things. And this year, and I've always felt like, no, it's choose your hard. Like that was my tagline for forever, which maybe has consequences. You know, full send, you know, everything has to be a struggle. You find your support, you know, your purpose in the struggle. And this year I was like, I wonder what it would be like if we could just say like, there might be a lot of abundance that's coming my way.
Yeah.
So I was curious your take on like, if you're sitting down and writing goals right now as Gabrielle Bernstein, what does that look like? Do you name your year? Are you really thoughtful about the words that you use?
I am.
Like, tell me about that.
I'm actually doing my own manifesting challenge. I'm day 5.
Oh, I love this.
And yesterday was what are you a yes for? Day 3 was what are you a yes for? And I was really clear. You know, I'm a yes for me this year, investing in me. And that means investing in my podcast space and investing in my production. And similar to what you said, you're just getting the top players around me so that I can be more in that creative space. And that clarity also is helping me because I said earlier, like I'm juggling the Tupperware. I want to be just juggling the China. My husband was pulling me into something, because we worked together, he was pulling me into something that felt like Tupperware. And I was like, babe, I can't. I don't want to. I'm not going to, because I have that clarity about I'm going to be in me and investing in me. I really love for you this time for abundance. It's a very maternal nature. Do I know? Oh my God, I'm channeling for you. Okay, I don't want to
do that. So funny you said that, because you know why abundance? Channeling. Also a bun, because I want to have a bun in the oven.
I know.
That's so wild. Okay,
I know. Do you want me to channel for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're saying like enjoy the fruits of your labor. The old energy of crush it, push it, that actually can't coexist with birthing, okay, or receiving, right? You need to get yourself into the receptive energy. Actually, no need to do anything. You're moving into receptive energy. Okay, and the receiving energy is going to be uncomfortable for you. You're going to be like, I don't know who this is. I don't know what to do here. But what you wanted. There's that desire is there, and so it is going to be facing parts of yourself. That's why the IFS stuff came up for you. Facing parts of yourself that need to be have compassion and need some love to say, okay, no, it's safe to stop crushing. Right? It's safe to stop pushing. It's safe to believe that things don't have to happen through force, but they can happen through freedom. And that there's a baby that's coming, that wants to come in, needs you to settle. It's like almost like your whole nervous system has to just like shake out. And the irony, what's going to happen for you, Codie, is that the more you get into that abundance energy and that maternal energy and that flow, the more success you'll have. And you're going to be like, wait, why did I get this sooner? But it's okay, because you had to do everything that you've done to get to the place where now you can feel the freedom to let go.
That's so creepy. That's so true. It's also weird because it makes me get a little emotional. You talking? Is that normal?
It's good. I'm going to crack you.
I know. Just one tear. I remember when I was on Diary of a CEO, I was like, Steven, I will not cry on this podcast.
I watched
but Gabrielle did.
Yes, exactly.
But that was beautiful. How do you do you ever get freaked out that you're going to say something and like it's
No,
not?
because I wouldn't.
You've just been doing this for so long.
I only get, like I said, I only get information about like up leveling and like higher purpose, and I get just beautiful information of like people that are in transition or people that just like in this moment, your baby's coming. It's the maternal energy that's coming through you, and that you need to get your energetic state to the same frequency that your physical state is. And your physical state's in really good shape.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's just getting your energy to be receptive. Because
so does that mean that when you say you have to get your nervous system shake out, what would that mean for people or me?
I mean, for you, I think it's about reprioritizing where you invest, right? So it's like if you're like, I could push further, I could push harder. In those moments where you hear that word push, I would just say, I can pause. Right? Just giving yourself that sort of back and forth of noticing the desire to push and then maybe giving yourself the permission to pause because that pushing is actually going to get in the way of the receiving.
That's such a good point. Okay, I'll just give you all my good vendors and things I want to push. You can push this year?
Well,
you
no,
want
I'm
to
not
push
pushing. No pushing. No.
What's this year?
I'm in purpose.
Oh,
purpose is my word.
Don't you feel? I feel like I look at you and would think purpose was every year.
So purpose has been every year, but it's committing to me
as the purpose.
As the purpose, yeah.
So because you're serving all these, and that can be. But I do. You get off a stage, at least for me, and I'm like so fired up, but also like, I just need to get home and have a tea or something and be by myself. So I imagine when you're serving all these people, there's a part of you that you're like, I gotta fill up again too.
Yeah, that's why I like moved my studio up to the country. And it's like I'm just gonna try to be home more, and then go out for things that I feel really purposeful.
I love that. Well, that was so beautiful. I want to end on basically where you feel like we should end. For somebody who's listening, I want to like serve. I thought about this the other day. On average, we get like 1 million to 3 million people listening to this across shorts and videos and all of it. And I took that really seriously. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, you forget who's listening.
That's 1 million hours.
Yes, we love you.
Yeah, we love you. And I want to honor every single second of that because life is precious. And so as you think about, the person who is listening to this right now and hopefully finding guidance from it, what would you share?
Well, I think a lot of your listeners are much like how I was when I was first starting out as an entrepreneur, and was really like hustle and strive and push and make things happen. And I achieved successes that way. But I want to give them the moment to hear me now. This is with 20 years as an entrepreneur, or 25 years as an entrepreneur, and 20 years of spiritual wisdom, to say that you can do less and attract more, and that it's safe to slow down, and it's safe to invest in yourself. And the sooner you learn that, the more success you'll receive.
So true. Promise?
I promise I can stand by it.
Gabrielle Bernstein, this was so good. Follow on all the socials. I love you on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dear Gabby. I can't wait for the first episode. Thank you so much for being here.
I love you.
Right back at you.
We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys. By our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you.
What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today.